We will now call this meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. Thank you all for coming in attendance for ASUCR's Halloween edition of Senate Meeting. Before we begin, we will now do our Section B, our roll call for attendance. Senator Christian Arredondo, present. Senator Reed Blake, present. Senator Akeem Brown, present. Senator Fabian Escobedo, present. Senator Ali Isles, present. Senator Jackie Jacoby, present. Senator Colette King, excuse. Senator Delaney Koenig, Senator Richard Lee, Senator Carlton Newen, present. Senator Priscilla Perret, present. Senator Jason Ramirez, present. Senator Herman Sanka, present. Senator Summer Schaefer, present. Senator Sam Uwe, present. President Pro Tempore Devin Plaza, present. Personnel Director Ashley Harana, present. Marketing and Promotions Director Rabin Mathab, present. Elections Director Stephanie Rose, present. Outreach Director Jessica Urquidez, present. Senate Secretary Adelia Chakri, present. Parliamentarian Momo Hussein, present. Vice President of Campus Internal Affairs Fernando Echeverria, present. Vice President of External Affairs Abraham Galvan, present. Vice President of Finance Ira Shea, present. President Nafi Karen, present. And myself. Alright, moving on with our agenda. Section C, approval of the agenda. One quick note, Sections H and Section F will be switching places, primarily to bring collaboration up, as well as the presentation in Section G directly pertains to Finance Committee and must be heard first. So, to repeat, Section H and Section F will be switching places. And do I have a motion to approve or amend the agenda?
I move to approve the amendment of the agenda. Do I have a second?
I object. Could you object? Because I motion to amend. Do I say my reason?
Yes.
Well, I'm not on the part of collaboration. I talked about it last week. Do you want me to talk about it again, or?
No, you don't have to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, to strike subsection 3 from Section H. Moved by Senator Akeem Brown. Would you like to restate your motion of the agenda?
Yes. I move to approve the amendment of the agenda as stated by Mr. Chairman. Do I have a second?
Seconded by President Pro Tempore Devin Plaza. All those in favor? And opposed? And abstain. Okay. By vote of 11-0, this one, 12-0, this motion passes. Okay. Subsection D of our approval, I will be passing around the meeting minutes. I'll start from my right, swinging over to my left, simply go through and check that all statements made are in fact accurate to how you spoke, and make amendments and then sign on that. Okay, moving on to our to Section E, our ex officios. For any ex officios that are in the gallery tonight, simply come forward and come speak from the podium, state your name, so you're recorded for the minutes, and your time to begin.
Alright, good evening all. I have a few brief updates about what the Internal Council is doing. This past week we had a very successful fall formal recruitment. We concluded with 155 quality men joining our 10 fraternities on this campus. In addition to that, I plan to bring new updates about major philanthropies that are going to be occurring through the rest of this quarter, this next week, upcoming week. Other than that, there's nothing major that we're doing in IFC currently. Thank you.
Actually, could you remain behind for questions, please? Senator Jackie Jacoby and Outreach Director Jessica Urquidez.
Just wondering, is there any update on what you mentioned last week at the meeting about the social media site and things like that, YIC or the apps, and what IFC is doing about that?
We're still in the midst of writing the resolution in regards to that. I plan on submitting it either tomorrow or Friday to the Legislative Committee.
Okay. Or I withdraw my question because it's the same one.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other ex officios in attendance who would like to speak? Okay. Seeing that, we will now move on to our next section, subsection F, now duly called collaboration. As I mentioned at our previous meeting, collaboration is an agenda item dedicated for senators who are working to request input among the Senate or among the galley on current projects or initiatives that they are working on and would like to hear from other opinions and perspectives in order to progress the projects for the student body. So first, we will hear from Senator Priscilla Perez, and the floor is yours to begin when you like.
Good evening, everyone. So for my senior project, I'm proposing to open a 24-hour study room or some kind of equivalent. It could be a library, that'd be really great and ideal. UC Davis has one. It's a 24-hour reading room. And I'm proposing that we section off part of the hub, could be second floor, third floor, haven't worked out the logistics, or even the Bears Den could be open, because I know that's currently open for student boards. It would just provide a safe space on campus for students to study past the regular library hours. So.
Marketing Director, repeat the file.
Hey Priscilla, I don't know if you know, but last year we had Senator Andrew Waugh and I worked on a project called Scotty's Late Night Lounge, which provided extra hours at Latitude 55 during finals week. So I wanted to kind of expand on that. Maybe last year was more like a social place to relax, but if you wanted to do like a more dedicated study area, I might be happy to work with you for that.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited.
Okay, great. Are there any others in the Senate who would like to offer? Senator Jason Ramirez.
I know that at BCOE they have access 24/7 to all of the engineering facilities. Basically, all you need is card access. So if security is an issue, because I do know that at least for an engineering, there's I think maybe one security guard for the whole building at night, two for the whole building at night. So maybe you want to do something with card access to where all you have to do is activate your card, and if you ever want to go in the middle of the night, you can just walk in there, swipe your card, and then go inside, and nobody else can get it.
So to my knowledge, that's just like the computer labs, right?
Yeah.
For BCOE?
It's more than just the computer labs. It's the whole building.
The whole building?
It's the whole building, depending what major you're in, though.
Okay.
But you can go request, if I do remember correctly, you can request to get access to any building, as long as you're an engineering student, that is. So if you wanted to open up that late night lounge or something like that, you could maybe talk to like computing or something like that. They can, or whoever's in charge of card services, they can probably help you out with that.
Okay, thank you.
Senator King Brothers, you have are there any other senators or perhaps on the horseshoe that would like to present their input? Okay, seeing that, we will continue on subsection 2. We have Senator Sam Way. You have the floor whenever you're ready to begin.
Basically, one of the projects I'm working on is a UCR Get Fit website for freshmen and students on the go who are really busy with classes and such. Through this, I want to collaborate through the rec center or outdoor excursions office, which send out trips for surfing and sandboarding. I work there, so they're really enthusiastic about that as well. I want to correlate with the rec center trainers through Michelle Sanson. I know she really wants her trainers to get more business, so I know she's planning to really join into that. I want to create videos on the website to view campus stores for healthier eating options and cheaper options for people who are on campus 24/7. So it's a little something I'm working on.
Any questions? You said it would be in the form of a website?
Yes.
Just is there anyone from the Senate wish to present questions, input for collaboration, perhaps advice? Those members, Senator, you want to work with them? Senator Jason Ramirez.
So last week I mentioned that we wanted to try and get an orange juicer in the hub and try to bring healthier food options and specifically healthier beverage options. So I would definitely like to work with you on that because I think they could coincide very well together.
Actually, yeah, that's a pretty good idea because I know the freshman dorms have incorporated healthier eating options a lot, so that's gonna really help too. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, we will now move on to section G. We have a presentation from President Nafi Karim. So one quick second while we transfer computers. So hard to see. Please enjoy the technical difficulties. All right. Hello. As you may have received the presentation for seamless docs, if you want to refer to that on your email. So over the summer, we started working on making our operations more efficient. So one thing that we looked into is e-signatures for our documents and web forms. So through our research, we looked into 3 vendors. One was Seamless Docs, another was DocuSign, and the last one was EchoSign by Adobe. So to give a little bit of overview, for Adobe EchoSign, the price per transaction, like per submission, was $1.25. So, and it used to be $1.50. For 10,000 transactions, that would be $12,500 a year. It would allow unlimited users to for the pool of transactions, and it would be billed annually. For DocuSign, the business license mode would cost us $1,500 per user. However, the issue with DocuSign was that we could not make our forms available online from our website. It would have to be emailed directly to the individual. So it did not actually fit with our model for how our operations work in terms of having documents, for example, the rec forms signed by students that we do not know before they submit it. So going on to Seamless Docs, this initially we passed $200 for a trial allocation, and after having gone through the trial period, just to give an overview, over the last month, Amy has been using it, and essentially she has done about 92 travel contracts for stock, and gone through 71 signatures in 3 days. So at this point, we're running out of all the signatures that we already funded. It kind of gives you a sense of how much it's already being utilized and how beneficial it is to our operations. The price for Seamless Docs is actually $1,000 per year, and this was lowered from about $2,500 at the lowest amount. So this is a special price for us,
and it would actually expire next week if we do not pass this proposal. So to give an overview of how seamless docs work, essentially you would update any forms on there. You would require signatures. So right now, we do not know who the authorized signers are. With any other form, you would have to know who they are and send it to them via email. With Seamless Docs, we don't need to know who they are. They can simply go on our ASUCR website, fill that out, put their signature on, and have it sent out. I'm trying to look at the corner of the screen. But you get the point. Essentially, because I can't see it on this screen. Essentially, you have the signatures signed by the authorized signers of the 12 organizations, and then it will go to finance via email where she can sign it off without having to come into the office like live, essentially, and then it will go to Amy for processing. So it speeds up the whole process, and this is the best price that we have for any vendor in this industry. So we've already allocated $200, so the remaining balance is $800. That would come from AS contingency. And yeah, if Abe would like to comment on that and give his testimony on the usage of Seamless Docs.
Well, I mean, I would say it's definitely been useful. I know that in the summer when I used paper copies for all the travel contracts, it's a lot more difficult to get people to like come pick up a contract or print out a contract and then submit it. It's also more work on their part, so it's like becomes harder to collect all the documents. But this way, I've been able to send out a link to everybody. Most people have been able to do it perfectly fine. And so you send it and they submit it like right away, so it's really quick and really easy. So I mean, I've liked it. I think my office would use it a lot probably, since we're the ones collecting all the travel contracts and whatnot. So I mean, I think it's a good idea. It's been useful so far, and I can definitely see it being useful for the rest of the year.
So lastly, on the details, all of the signatures that we would get are unlimited, and all of the forms are unlimited now. We had before, in comparison, we had 5 forms, 3 Seamless Docs, so the limits were very much constrained. Now it's unlimited everything for a simple price of $1,000 a year. So I hope that you all will make the right decision in passing this and moving our office forward.
Okay, at this time, I will open up the floor for Senator questions or comments for discussion. Okay, yes, Outreach Director Jessica Keith.
Regarding the Seamless Docs for outreach, I've been working with Maggie and with Amy, and we've been finding a lot of difficulties because of the fact that mine requires 3 separate signatures. So as of now, we're not able to use it for the outreach directors, and I know we spoke about this over the summer, and we told Amy that, you know, if she can play around with it. We've tried to do it, and the way that I did it, because of the fact that mine was the trial or my own, there was a lot of things that I was not able to do. And then when Amy actually tried it, we met twice, and on Tuesday, she was facing difficulties because of the fact that there was 3 signatures, and we're only able to direct it to one person, and we're not able to transfer. And so we would have to actually get a signature from the representative applying for the grant, a signature from the department, and then also my own signature. We resolved a simple solution of I don't have to sign it once I get it to me. But then when I spoke to the director of the department about that, they would prefer to have me sign it so that way they know that the actual application is done and it's done right. So they have a completion code with my signature on it. But that would mean that we would have another email sent out. So as of now, we have no program that is able to send and resend and receive and send the emails. So it's very difficult to use for outreach. I know we had spoken briefly about it over the summer with Ravine about having a Google Doc, you said that was?
A Google form?
A Google form. So Maggie did say that, and because we had set the dates over the summer and we have a lot of the events coming up, I've gotten approached by several different organizations that I was hoping to keep seamless docs out of the outreach application, but because of all the hard work that I put in over the summer, I didn't want to give up on it. But I don't know how it would be useful without the fact that it needs to be transferred.
So actually, when we played around with it afterwards, I kept playing around with it. There's a very simple solution to have all 3 signatures applied. The same thing applies for finance. You can have 3 signatures. All it would be is the first signature will be unknown because we don't know who's applying first. That person will then direct who the second email gets sent out to, and the third one will be someone known, and that will be your personal email. So automatically, once they put it to their director, they will sign it, and then it will be forwarded to you.
The only thing, can I respond to that? The only thing with that is the actual application has to be sent to me before I send it. So what we came to that conclusion, we did the same thing. The first and second signer would be an unknown signer, and the last one would be a known signer. The first one would have to still be sent to me, and then I would have to send it myself to the department, and then the department would have to send it to me as well. So that gets rid of the communication between the department and the representative that's applying for the application. And after meeting on Tuesday, we had, that was the biggest issue. So if there's still a way to find out how to resend.
Yeah, there's a we'll figure it out.
Okay, but I need. Sorry.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a way. I'll show you. Like back there, because we're at this point talking about logistics.
But there is a way.
There is a way.
But based on Amy, I mean, she's been playing with it for over a month, and she's still also saying that outreach application would be easier if we keep it as a Google form, or last year that was how it was as a Google Doc.
We can definitely look into that and resolve it.
Elections Director,
in response to you, I personally am not going to use Seamless Docs for all of the elections paperwork that I'm going to do. However, I do think it's still a very useful program. Amy even sent me paperwork this summer, and while I was out of town, it was very, very user-friendly. It was really easy for me to sign things. So there might be some applications that maybe for your office you can't use specifically, but I think overall it's still a really good program we should use.
Oh, sorry. By any means that I want to say that the program is not. I've used it for the SOC conference and and things like that. It's just for my specific application. I've been trying to use it, and it's a little bit more difficult. But other than that, I mean, it's great.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to present their opinion on this matter? Okay. If not, we will vote on the final passage of this when we hear from Finance Committee reports. Until then, we have a second part of the presentation from our president, so I will give him the floor.
Yeah, so the second part of the presentation is the nominations for our justices. I would like to introduce Gadiel Lopez. If you could step up to the podium. He's involved on campus, he's an active listener, and he has great communication skills. So if you would like to, if you have any questions, concerns about his qualifications, I would appreciate that you address them as he's in front of you right now.
Could you state your name for the purpose of the minutes?
Yeah, hi, my name is Gabriel Lopez.
Would you be willing to speak for a minute or so about your qualifications for the position?
I try to live my life living with purpose, and I think that everything that I undertake, I try to make sure that I actually have a conviction following that. So everything that I try to involve myself in, I do it with an open heart, and I do it with an open mind. So I also do it with a clear purpose, and that's one of the things that I feel has really impacted me here at UCR. Everything that I've joined and everything that I'm involved in, I do it because I really believe in it. And so as a justice and seeing how this organization works and just being a part of the Highlander community, I just really want to be more involved and mostly work off of the community service building blocks that are really important in my life, and mostly give back to the community, to the Highlander community in that way by being of service.
At this time, senators are free to present their questions, and we can take any speaking list.
Point of information. Which position is this, Chief Justice or Justice?
Justice. At this point, the justices are first appointed, and an internal decision is made among the judicial branch on how they will appoint their Chief Justice.
Out of the Justice.
Okay. Out of the justices, yeah. So at this point, we will simply be appointing personnel for the justices. Senator Keyron.
Good evening, thank you. Most friends, when they come across a situation where their friend has been involved in something, the natural instinct is to cover for your friend. If there was a situation that was brought to your office that involved a friend, how would you go about in carrying out your responsibility to find facts and make a decision if your friend was the person you were investigating?
First of all, definitely involve others. Make sure that I'm not the one being the one with the majority of decision making. Making sure that everyone else is involved, is aware of the situation, that the person is my friend, or that my opinions may be biased, but definitely making sure that everybody else knows the situation, presenting a case to the point where they eventually find an unbiased, because since they're not their friends, an unbiased opinion is formed. And so I will make sure that definitely listen to their comments, and I'm definitely looking at the evidence first. I understand that sometimes friends do things, but that shouldn't get in the way of justice. I feel like they should definitely be held accountable for their actions, just like I will be held accountable for my actions. I think that's what friendship is, making sure that they're also on the same boat as you, making them know that, whatever it is that they're going through, whatever it is that they've done, there are consequences to it. And so that's just one of the main things that I feel like I've lived it in my own life as well. I've had to go against family members in some decisions that they've made. I've had to stand against them. And it's very difficult to tie those personal ties because, you've lived with them, you've known them for a long while. And but ultimately, the better choice has to be made regardless of how long that friendship has been. So usually, the truth overcomes that situation.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions from the Senate at this time? Okay. Seeing none, if you would kindly introduce you, please. Oh,
yeah. If you can just
actually, yeah, remain.
And then I would also like to introduce for justice nomination Daniel Ojo. He is an active listener, a great communicator, meticulous and detail oriented, and is always willing to learn something new.
Could you please state your name for the minutes purposes?
Yeah, my name is Daniel Ojo.
If you'd be willing, could you speak briefly on your qualifications for the position?
Yeah. I'm an engineer, and I'm a fourth year, and basically I've been on campus for a while now, and the opportunities I've gotten from the campus, such as research opportunities and career fairs and all that, I've had a pretty big impact on my life, and I feel like it's my time to give back before I have one more year. So I feel like this is a great opportunity to affect and a great influence on my campus and to give back. And so that's why I believe that I am qualified. Other qualifications that pertain to my standing is that I'm very, like you said, I'm an active listener, and critical thinking is one of the major influences that I had to go through and learn through my engineering major, as well as decision making. I have a very good social perspective. I understand where people will come from based on their responses to questions. I can understand that, and that will help me make better decisions for the community, better decisions for the person in the situation. And so that's why this would be a good option.
Great, thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to, could you remain, please? Open up the floor to senators who have questions for the candidate.
Is this for questioning?
For questioning, yeah.
I may be mistaken, but I believe you said this is your 4th year?
Yes.
So a justice's term is 2 years, so you do plan to stay here?
I'm on a 5-year track. So.
Okay, so this year, next year. Okay, thank you.
Senator Akeem Brown.
Good evening. This position is fairly new. It's only been in the ASUCR for maybe 2 to 3 years. There is not much of a community service aspect to this position. You mentioned in your presentation that you're community service oriented. So I'd like to know, what would you do to help expand the community service role of the judicial branch in the ASUCR?
That's a very good question. Coming from high school, I was a student representative, and what I learned from there is that the actions you take will affect the community. So whatever decision I'm making, whatever plans that come through the justice office, has to be made with the mindset that the community is going to be affected. And so that in part is kind of a service to the community to make sure that their best interest is being executed and represented in the decisions that we make. And so in that form, it would be a service to the community.
Thank you.
Were there any other senators who wish to have questions? Okay, seeing none, you would just kind of sit right next to Adiel Lopez, back on that side.
The next nomination for justice is Rashi. She is she is a critical thinker, has great communication skills, and is able to be unbiased in her decision making.
Hi, if you could please state your name for the purpose of the minutes.
My name is Rashi Goyal.
Could you please spell that?
RAASHIGOYAL.
Great, thank you. If you would, could you please speak briefly on behalf of your qualifications for the office?
Yes. So a few of my qualifications include being an active listener and being able to resolve conflict in an unbiased manner. And I improved these skills by being captain of my high school tennis team. I was often faced with dilemmas where girls on the tennis team had got into conflict, or I had to motivate the girls to do their best on court, and that required me to be able to listen to them without interruption, and just listen to them and be able to bring everyone together and sort out all of our differences, and then that's how I was an active listener. And in terms of being unbiased, all of these girls were my friends, and it it was really, it's hard to like take sides and everything. So I had to make sure that none of these girls thought I was taking sides, and so I sorry.
It's okay.
Just me take breath. So yeah, I had to be unbiased in those situations, and it also improved my communication skills because I had to be there to motivate my friends and the girls on the team, and also I am a student assistant at the UCR Extension Center, where I am in charge of putting together registrations for incoming students, and I am in charge of talking to students if they have any questions. So that also improved my communication skills and my patience, because some of these students don't have very high English levels, and so it helped me to take time to like teach them the process of coming into UCR and help them with any questions that they have. So yeah, that's a way where that's how I have some communication skills. And I was also involved in Link Crew my senior year of high school, and so that involved helping the incoming freshmen to transition into high school and adjust to their new high school atmosphere, and advise them with any questions that they might have had. So yeah, those are a few of my qualifications.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I open up the floor to Senate questions. Senator Keith Brown.
Good evening. Have you read the ASUCR Constitution?
I have not, but I am definitely, I am going to read it as like.
Another question. Can you explain to me the principle of separation of powers within governments and what that means to you as a justice?
Yes, that means to keep to keep everyone in check, to make sure that no one is biased or no one is abusing their power, and so it in this judicial position, I want to make sure that I am completely unbiased towards anyone and make sure that the environment atmosphere is fair and friendly.
Did you have any more questions? Okay. Senator Delaney Koenig.
Hi. What year are you?
Oh, I'm a third year, and I'm a business econ major and a computer science minor.
Marketing Director Ravina Pao.
Do you have experience with legislation or going through documentation or formal mediation?
Well, for mediation, I was as I said before, I was a captain of the tennis team, so I was constantly mediating conflict between the girls. And in terms of taking care of documentation, at the UCR Extension Center, I'm constantly looking at paperwork from students, seeing if they're missing anything, like checking their passports and everything to make sure that everything is correct. So.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So with that, I would motion to have the justice nominations be approved by Senate.
Okay. Motion to approve the justice nominations. Is there a second? Second.
Are we approving the one ticket or individual?
One ticket.
Senator Herman Senga with External Affairs and
Objection, just because I personally motioned to have the question answer, second would not be. I personally have one question, so that's why.
Senator Herman Senga, would you like to?
Yeah, I motion to have a question and answer segment with Nafi Kareem regarding the appointment.
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second? Seconded by Marketing Director Ravine Rathod.
On your procedure, if the questions are going to address, if the questions are going to address individuals, I'm not sure that we would. Are they going to address any individuals, or if you believe that the responses might elicit responses about individuals, we wouldn't necessarily be able to do that unless we go into closed session.
Okay, yeah, so my personal question was just regarding the procedure on how he nominated it. So it had nothing to do with the specific personnel. However, I am motioning to have a question segment, so I'm not sure if anybody else had any other questions.
Just making sure.
Okay, my question would not.
Okay. Motion by Senator Herman Sanga, seconded by Marketing Director Ravine Rathod. All those in favor of a question and answer session? All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. Okay, at 5-6-2, this motion does not pass. We will proceed with the original motion on the floor, which was to approve the justice nominations in toto, which means all in one ticket. Motion by President Afi Karim. Is there a second? Objection to the motion, that requires a 2/3 to not be held.
Do I need to explain my position?
Yes, please.
I would like to divide the ticket and vote individually. Do I have a second?
Essentially, you're requesting a modification of the motion that was made. Okay, for division of the question. Okay. Okay, that requires a second majority vote.
I have a second.
Do I have a second?
It's quite a parliamentary procedure.
No,
oh, it's now. Okay. Yeah, because we were just looking at the bylaws, and the only thing was, I believe this was going to be Herman's question as well, is that the Justice Council or the Judicial Council is nominated by the Executive Cabinet and then ratified by the Senate. Was it nominated by the Executive Cabinet vote?
So, in the Constitution, it says Executive Cabinet, then it's further clarified in the bylaws of the President that it is nominated by the President. But in any case, at least 3 out of 5 ECAB members approved the nominations.
Okay. And that was at an ECAB meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor for division of the question to vote on individual tickets. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Sam Uwe. All those in favor of dividing out a vote by candidate? All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? And abstain. Okay, by a vote of 13-1, this motion passes. We will now vote on each of these candidates individually. We have ballots presented for these personnel appointments. So the first motion will be for our first candidate, Gabriel Lopez. At this time, the secret ballots will be handed out. To vote in favor is to approve the nomination. To vote opposed is to reject the nomination. And abstain. Write the 3 separate ones, yeah. Write the initials of the candidate. Okay, and just to be able to save on paper, the paper that you're receiving, essentially just write the initials of the candidate or a way to separate which vote it is to have the 3 separate votes on a single piece of paper.
Can you list out their initials again, please?
Okay, from Gabriel Lopez, it's GL, correct? Okay, and Daniel Ojo is DO. And can I get your initials?
Rashi Goyle, RG.
RG. Okay, thank you. So simply write the initials, yes, no, or abstain on the nomination. Once you've finished your vote, simply hold it up, and the Senate Secretary and I will come around to collect your votes and count them together.
We haven't gotten to the other side yet.
Oh, that's right. That one you gave me 8.
Oh, yeah.
Those for them.
That's
right.
It's coming this way. Thank you, Seth.
I also just wanted to say thank you to all of you for coming out to speak. I know it can be intimidating, and I really appreciate you coming out and spoke and answering the questions.
Clarification, we do have a ballot in which only one candidate was voted upon, so we're going to resubmit the slips of paper. And just to clarify, mostly because I can't single out a senator, otherwise the anonymity is broken. So I will resubmit the slips of paper, and just a reminder, you're voting on all 3 candidates on the same slip of paper, but you are voting on them individually.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If you do a T-chart, it'll help.
This is a T-chart. Name decision.
Thank you for the organization.
That's what I thought.
Oh, yeah.
He sent a butterfly.
Oh yeah.
Yes, actually, I'm sorry, Assemblymember Medina. Before we actually hear the vote, I know that you had an important matter to discuss, and so I'm going to actually make a decision to try and move up public forum so we actually hear your comments on transfer students before you leave.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's a privilege to be. I'm Assemblymember Jose Medina. I represent the 61st Assembly District, which includes Paris, the city of Moreno Valley, and Riverside. And I'm very proud to represent Riverside, which includes UC Riverside. I sit on the Higher Ed Committee, and I've been there for 2 years, and I meet regularly with President Janet Napolitano and all Assembly members who represent UC campuses. And so I'm very happy to be here in front of ASUCR. I'm a former alum, class of 1974, and MA 1984. And most of my staff here, not too far from here, are UC grads. Yeah, most of them. I was here with the chancellor for the alum dinner not too long ago, and got a chance today to be here for Dia de los Muertos and to speak to many students. I applaud the chancellor for the work he's done in making sure that the students are aware of the upcoming election next Tuesday, and the work that you, ASUCR, have done in the past and at this time for Tuesday's election. But I'm here tonight to speak about recognition of a transfer month, of making November a transfer month. I was a high school teacher for 34 years in this area and a community college trustee for 13 years. So speaking with Hakeem here this afternoon, he invited me, and I wanted to be here to support the idea of making November transfer month throughout the state of California. I would be very happy to go to Sacramento and carry that legislation come January, and because I understand as a high school teacher, as a community college trustee, how important transfers are to the university. And I hope that you will approve that today, and come January, I intend to introduce November as transfer month in the state of California. And that's my reason for being here. So I thank you. Thank you, Michael, for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assemblymember.
Any questions at all? If you have time, I'd be very happy.
I do.
Go ahead.
Assemblymember, we are all new. Assemblymember, we are all technically new legislators. Can you give us advice on how we should conduct ourselves as far as research and legislation, and just being representatives of students.
There is no more effective spokespeople for higher education than you. Nobody can do the job that you can do to bring your issues in front of the state legislature. Nobody can do what you can do. Nobody can speak from your point of view, from the student point of view. So I would encourage all of you, to be part of the UC Lobby Day, UCR Lobby Day. Come up to Sacramento, but you don't have to wait to come to Sacramento. My office is a block away from here, and I'm very happy that my office is here, a block away in University Village. I'm always looking for interns. I'm always happy to meet with any group, including UCR students. So be active. Be active in calling and contacting your legislators, not only me, but Senator Rock and Congressman Takano. And make your issue known. And believe me, higher education it is very important to the state of California. So thank you.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to say thank you. I know you've been showing up to a lot of the events. We also invited you as a speaker at the Bienvenida. I don't know if you remember.
I was there.
Yes, I introduced you.
Thank you for having me.
So I appreciate the fact that you came out, and also today unexpectedly. I don't know if you were invited formally, but just I know that you were able to go to the different actas and also speak to the different student organizations. And I already know that they had posted it on Instagram. But thank you once again.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you very much. And look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator Medina. As UCR grads, we do love employment opportunities. Okay. Now, due to that pleasurable interruption, we can now read back the results of the final ballot count. On the count for Gadia Lopez, by a vote of 12-0, the confirmation passes. For candidate Daniel Ojo, by a vote of 11-3-0, the nomination passes. For Rashi Goyal, by a vote of 6-8-0, the nomination does not pass. Okay, proceeding on with our agenda, we will now hear on we will now go to section H on our committee reports. And first up, we have our finance committee on subsection 1.
Okay, hi everyone. First, I just want to say that I had my secretary make the revisions that Senator Herman suggested last meeting, so hopefully it's more efficient or easier for y'all to read. Okay, first of all, we approved the single stocks. We allocated 800 additionally because we already had the 200. And then also our finance bylaws are being tabled for next week. We are waiting on some final administrative review, and then we're just waiting to hear back from them. And as for the organizations, we have allocated 825 to Liberty in North Korea, 1,208 to Salsa Club at UCR, 825 to Neuroscience, 998 to Undergraduate Business Association, 1,098 to Feel Good at UCR, 825 to Highlander Clubs, 908 to Jacob's Dream Foundation, 750 to English Majors Association, 110 to Accounting Society, and 177 to Society of Women Engineers. And the last two organizations, they are all review. And that's all.
Okay. Senator King Brown and then Outreach Director Jessica Keys.
Vice President of Finance, could you please give me a scenario as to I'm a new org, I don't know where to go or how to start this process? Could you give me a just hypothetical scenario of how I would, one,
submit these forms or obtain the forms, then submit them, and then 2, how is the funding dispersed?
Okay. First, if you are a new organization, you must be signed up with Student Life and have your members registered on Highlander Link. And then if you want to be receive funding from us, you would have to sign up for a budget activation hearing, and that is with Maggie. And in there, she will help you, kind of draft your budget for your organization for this year. And then you have to sign up for a finance hearing. So this is what I have. And during the hearing, you present us, myself and my committee members, your budget, and we just help you kind of revise and we ask you questions like, oh, what is this money used for? What is this line item used for? For example, they would request, money for meeting, which they use for food, for drinks for their members. And then we pass or not pass the question. I'm sorry, what was your question?
The last question is, how is the funding then dispersed?
Okay, we mainly go on a reimbursement thing. They purchase their items and then they sign a requisition form, and then we check if that's within their line item, within their budget.
Are there any instances where a student can receive, an org can receive funding in which it's not reimbursed? What are the alternatives to coming out of your pocket with cash and then getting reimbursed?
Yeah, we also do. We are trying to go for more purchase orders for the student organizations. So, if they're trying to rent out a room on campus or something, we can, ASUCR, we can go to just go directly for them, reach out to the departments on campus and do a purchase order for them.
Senator Herman, second. Oh, I'm sorry. Just to repeat this, Senator Council.
Hi. One thing that I have spoken to different organizations about is I know that this whole quarter is full.
Oh, for what?
For outreach hearings. Finance hearings. For finance hearings. So I know there's a lot of different organizations that cannot get their activation for their account. They told that from the actual organization was full in, and they let me know that they are having a conference that they annually have in the fall, but they cannot get their account activated based on the fact that they did not get a hearing slot in time.
Mm-hmm.
They did, we also, I went with you to speak at the organization retreat, and I know the process is really, really well. I understand it, and I feel that we did a great job to the point where all the organizations came in at the same time. So I don't know if there's a way that we can still activate those accounts, especially for organizations that are having events that need their account activated for that. So there was a way that we can answer that question. But when I spoke to Maggie, she said that there was a way that we can do it overnight or online. But I'm not sure if she included you on that or if you don't know.
Well, the budget activation meetings, they are a first come, first served basis, and they have been open since, I believe, July or the beginning of summer. Mm-hmm. So those organizations who wait until, now, and the slots are already filled, I can't really move them up or.
Senator Herman Saga, and then Marketing Director.
Well, I yield my time to Ravine, because what I'm trying to say was not related to this, however, if you want to comment on the conversation.
Yeah, I was actually, I kind of agree with Jessica's sentiment, not even about the budget activations. My issue was with the finance hearings. I know, for example, a lot of clubs are oftentimes unable to sign up in time, so they have 2 to 3 week waiting times. The other thing is for the ASUCR office, there's only 2 spots all quarter. And for example, in my instance, the reason I'd like to attend a finance hearing is to get a stipend for my vice chair, who's worked all throughout summer and also during this year. But it has to wait, first I had to wait 2 weeks for that, then submit to LRC, then wait another week to submit it on Senate floor, which he's fine with, but I just don't think that's really fair. In addition, I have class on the both times that the ASUCR slots are, so the only person that can go would be my vice chair, but then he would have to explain why he should deserve the stipend, which doesn't really make sense. So it's like with like about just like 10 finance hearings a week. I mean, at most, even if they're all full, you're only getting about 100 clubs a quarter. And if we have over like 450 clubs, I just think like, I mean, finance committee is integral to this campus and to this office. Like, there's people with stipends that sit on the finance committee. I just think it's really important to make sure that we have a lot more slots available. And even for the budget activation, I don't think it's necessarily correct to put the blame on the club for not signing up in time. I mean, if the slots are filled, that means there is a high demand for budget activations. So I think instead of telling them to sign up first, we should instead open up more spots so more clubs can sign up. And they do pay for us anyways, so this is their money going back to them. So I just think there should be more opportunities for students and AS members to access finance.
And Senator Summershaker.
Also, in response to what you were saying, I had recently had a conversation with Andrea in response to how Maggie is going to have an online system, and she's hoping to have that done as soon as possible and during this quarter, so that clubs don't actually have to come in and they can do it at their discretion, and it would be online and it would be a lot more efficient, since we're just trying to get that done before this quarter end, so that any clubs that might want to meet this quarter but it's already booked can do that online.
Yeah, I am aware of the online system. I don't have to pass me, but
Okay, Senator Hussain.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Raveen. I myself am currently the president of 2 clubs here on campus, as well as a member of various other clubs on campus. And actually, what Raveen said was actually brought to my attention earlier this week, when an individual of a club came up to me and said, "Herman, I wanted to go to the finance hearing this week, or for next week, because I believe you signed 1 week in advance, so I wanted to go to the finance hearing for week 5. However, when I stopped by the ASUCR office at, I believe he said 9:30, the finance hearing meetings had already all been booked for the next week 5. So, and then when I went and I asked the front desk, they advised me as a leader of an organization to come in and stand in line at 8 a.m. to get a finance hearing. So not only would I argue that that is discriminatory in nature, because only the individuals who can come there at 8 are allowed to get finance hearings, I'd also agree with Raveen's statement that there are stipend positions on the committee, and it is the beginning of the school year, and I would argue that it is very important for clubs to be very strong and have a support network at the beginning of the school year, and it is up to AS to provide that support network, not only through advertisement, but also through money financing. So like Raveen said, if you are meeting with 10 clubs a week for 10 weeks, that only reaches up to 100 clubs maximum per quarter. And on top of that, if a club were to want a grant, that is also counted in one of those 10-minute meetings. So I actually took it upon myself to go to Maggie and discuss that with her. And she said, yeah, I believe she said it starts at 2:30, and then at 2:30 finance committee meets, and at 3 o'clock is when they start to have their finance hearings, and it goes until the last one they meet is at 4:20. So so I would argue that we should, and maybe not for the whole year, but for the beginning of the school year, for fall quarter, finance committee should meet for more than 2 hours. Not only is that very important for the clubs, but just in general, like Raveen said, even as an AS member, it's hard for him to meet with the finance committee. So that was just a concern that a student brought to my attention, something that I followed upon, and now these are my advice, that finance committee should meet more. I don't know what the steps are from here. However, I would love to talk to you and other individuals, or whoever I have to address that concern. So that was just my first thing. And second thing, this is more of a question to Ashley and yourself. I was wondering if you're still currently looking for a senator for finance committee, because in my understanding of the bylaws, we are not, finance committee is not operating in accordance to the bylaws, because the bylaws explicitly state that 2 members of the finance committee must be senators. And there are currently, according to the roll call that was given by the EVP, there's only Priscilla Perry on the, so that was just a question.
Yeah, that is true that there's only 1 senator, but it's been 2 weeks since I made the first announcement. and I've emailed a couple senators individually about that. And I cannot force a senator to be on a committee. And so even though, yes, it is in the bylaw that there needs to be 2 senators, I can't tell you, you have to be on this one because it's not an appointed position.
Senate President Pro Tem.
For future reference, in regards to having a senator not sitting on that, maybe we could put priority on committees that are within ASUCR. I know I had trouble finding a couple for LRC. So maybe if we put priority and put senators in those committees first. I know that other committees on campus do require that, but I feel as though like with committees like finance and LRC where it affects the rest of the school as well, I think we should kind of give priority and make sure that those are full.
Yeah, can I comment on that?
Yes.
Yeah, just in response to what Devin said, that's a really great idea. That's something that we've been considering since about the week before school started. This was my first term, so there were things that I was not aware of, and there were things that I didn't know the best process that was going to be out there. But as you guys know, during the end of summer, we had sent applications to the senators so that the senators could be a part of the committees first before the application went out to the student body. And for future reference, we will have a list of committees that require senators, and then have a list of committees that would be just what the senators are interested in. And that way, the committees such as student housing or LRC or finance, those would be filled first and at priority. That way, you guys wouldn't be bombarded with emails from me asking to join more than 2 committees. That's all.
Senator Jackie Jacoby.
It'd be helpful, I think, also in the future if I know that like this past year when choosing our committees, we couldn't see what times they met, like that was against the rules. And so once the times were announced, my entire like committee thing changed. And so I think having things like that ahead of time and more information regarding the times and locations can help people know when they actually can come, and so they can go to things like that.
Probably hear from Vice President.
Yeah, I can say that as someone who organizes committees, it's very difficult for us to like set up times for committees. Ideally, we would set up a time and then everybody would make it to those times. But it becomes really difficult to do it that way because you want to be as accommodating of everybody as possible. So that's why usually, ideally, you would get all the members of all the committees and then like decide amongst yourself when the best time for you to meet would be. That's a way that I would suggest for other committees to do what they do. But the drawback from that is that it takes time to do that, and some committees need to meet immediately. So I can see why that would be difficult, but I think maybe like in the future, if we are able to I really like Ashley's suggestion of making sure that our in-house committees that need people on them, like finance and LRC, are filled like first, so that we can make sure that we don't have like issues like this. I think that would be a really good idea. And switches might have to happen like in regards to like which committees you're in after you apply to them. I know at the beginning of last year I had to switch committees because I couldn't make it to the times. But hopefully in the future we can make sure that we work with the chairs of those committees better, so that we can see if they would be willing to make adjustments that would make it easier for senators to come in. I think another thing that makes it difficult is that a lot of these committees aren't necessarily AS committees. So as much as we would like to tell like the other committees and their chairs like how to do things ideally to work with the senators, they're not necessarily concerned primarily about senators being able to attend to those meetings if we're going to be real.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Jackie, what you mean by against the rules. So if you could clarify that, that'd be great. But I also want to say thanks to Abe, because that's exactly the answer I would have given you. Because about 60-70% of our committees are run by faculty, it's basically impossible to be able to get every single time and meeting and dates for those committees, especially when we start doing this in the end of June.
Yeah. Oh, when I said like against the rules, I meant that when I asked like at retreat and past meetings for the times, I wasn't allowed to know the times, and so
that's because none of the times were announced yet.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Are there any more points of the floor? Researcher Jessica Keenan.
I just wanted to let everyone know how hard Ashley's been working to fill these committees. I've actually sat through a lot of the interviews with her, and I think it's very difficult, one, to find students, but to fill these committees just to meet for quorum. So that's, I see the emails, or I have conversations, and we go through interviews, and where it's to the point where we have students that are applying to all the committees. So we have students that are more willing to be on AS committees than there are senators that are willing to commit.
Senator Herman, second.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not trying to play the blame game. I'm sorry if it did come off that way. I was just, trying to abide by the bylaws, and I would argue, even though, no senator currently sits on that committee, we should still, be in the pursuit of staying in accordance to the bylaws. So, I'd put it upon the Senate. If there are any senators who can make it to the Finance Committee, understand that these are the bylaws that, are the governing documents of AS and of the student body. So, I understand that it has been a problem and it is currently a problem. However, we shouldn't stop the pursuit of trying to get a senator on that committee.
Okay. There are no other points to be made. At this time, I open up the floor for motions. Do I have a motion to approve the finance meeting minutes and budget allocations? Senator Herman, second.
Yeah, I move to approve the finance meetings.
Okay. Do I have a second? All right, seconded by Senator Fabian Escobedo. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. Okay, by a vote of 14-0, this motion passes. Vice President Abraham.
Yeah, I had a point that I wanted to make earlier, but I hadn't thought about it completely until after y'all voted. Something that I would suggest that I think would really help address this issue even better is giving the personnel director in the future more ability to actually assign senators to committees. And the reason why I say that is because it's difficult when senators want to say like, oh, I'll be on these 2 committees, right? But we don't have enough people to make it meet, or you want to be on special committees, right? I think the personnel director should have the ability to assign people to these committees that we have to have, like LRC and Finance, and then aside from those, make it up to like senators if they want to take on more committees or if they want to just do those bare minimum. But I think that's really what makes it really difficult. I think it would help a lot if we could do that. Also because if you look at the committees that we have, a lot of committees definitely by no means have the same amount of work as each other. And I think only the personnel director or like people that have been involved with those committees really know the workload of those committees. So at the end of the day, it's not fair for like a senator to be on LRC and Finance and for another senator to be on committees that I won't name, but that obviously like take less work, So I think that's also an important consideration that the personnel director can really give. I think that would also help set it. And if there's an issue with appointments or anything like that, you all know that you can always come to Senate and discuss it, or that you can always go to judicial. So I think that would be too much of a concern. But I think it would help expedite the process and make sure that we have those positions filled. That's just a suggestion for the future.
Okay. Senator Keene Brown, President of the Rim, and then Vice President for National.
Sort of to expand on what Vice President of External Affairs has said, I think that it can be solved at the moment the candidate is filling out an application. We can add a question. There are committee requirements. Pick 3 committees. So that way, if that candidate is elected, we have them locked in for the committee already.
This is going on a different topic because I didn't get the chance to yet. I would like to thank the justices and the personnel that were nominated for coming out and presenting their case. So if we can again give them a round of applause. Also, just to clarify any misconceptions, so the justices in the Constitution, it says that ECAB nominates justices, and then it's further clarified in the ASUCR bylaws of the president that the president nominates the justices, right? But under that presumption, as it was practiced last year and this year. I was understanding that the president basically nominates the justice nominations, but I did meet with Iris and Michael just to consult with them that if they were with they were okay with the nominations. I did not actually meet with Abraham Galvin or Fernando, but it is under my understanding that the president appoints or nominates the justices as the bylaws say. But just to have all measures checked, I did consult with at least 3 ECAB members to ensure that the nominations were at least sound in that regard. But Abraham Galvin and Fernando Echeverria were not did not vote for these nominations.
Vice President Fernando Echeverria and Vice President Abraham Galvan, Marketing Director Ravine Rathod.
So this was a point of information. This is actually going back to the other topic. So Michael, how much progress have you made on the priority registration side? Because I feel like a lot of the issues that we were talking about earlier can be solved with the priority registration, seeing as we can kind of create our own schedules and allocate different days that will be for our meetings. So that would be a really good solution, especially for just the meetings that are out of our own control.
Absolutely. I had a meeting with Vice Chancellor Sandoval last Thursday, and Vice Chancellor Sandoval's in the room right now. So
he's texting.
He's texting. And I also met with the former Dean of Students, Susan Allen Ortega. I'm sorry, I can't remember the current title that you have.
That's right. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs.
Okay, we'll record that in this. And Susan Allen Ortega. Yes, I met with both of them, and I went with our President Pro Tempore Devin Plazo, and we presented our case on exactly why our senators should have priority registration, on the fact that we do meet very unique duties, that this is treated like a job, and that if we do not meet these duties, that our job becomes at risk. It is not only the committees, it is the projects, it is assignments, and it is the deliberation on legislation. It is a host of factors that when we presented it to the Vice Chancellor, he agreed that yes, this is something we should move forward on. And as of yet, I have drafted a proposal that will be given to the deans of each of the colleges, the CHATS, the CNAS, BCOE, and SOBA. Right now we're in the middle of setting up a meeting between the 4 of them so that they can have the proposal heard. I'm actually, I was going to do this, I was looking for representatives from one of each of the colleges, a senator, to assist me in going to that meeting so we can deliver the proposal. I have given the proposal to our President Pro Tempore Devin Plazo, who has looked it over. We've collaborated with, I've asked actually many of you on the Horseshoe exactly how you feel about priority registration, and I've gotten your input on that end. So thank you for pointing that out. Yes, we are making grounds, and it is my aim, hopefully, that this will be enacted by this quarter, and so that when you sign up for winter classes, it'll be priority registration. Thank you for the support. And Abraham Galvan, then Ravine Rathod.
Yeah, my point goes back to what Nafi said. So, I just think that it's very important in the future to make sure that, because in the Constitution it says that the executive cabinet nominates these justices, and I have no problem with the justices. I think they all did a good job. I think they all did a great job. I actually thought that all of them should have been ratified. However, with that being said, it can by no means become a precedent for us to not be consulted as members of executive cabinet, because I feel like we have at least valuable experience that we can share in regards to what's happening. So in the future, there should be no circumstance where there's an executive cabinet meeting or a vote that is taken where we're not even informed of that decision happening, right? I feel like that's extremely problematic and in and of itself. And so luckily in this case, I have no issue with the people that were nominated, but in a future scenario, I could very well say like I should have been consulted and I should have had a vote before the nominations went through. And so I just want to make sure that that's addressed, because I think that that's a really bad precedent in terms of like, and I understand sometimes it might be easier to like access Iris or Michael, like maybe sometimes some of us will be busy, but we can at least be told like, hey, we're going to be talking about the justices and we're going to be having a vote, like y'all should come. So I just wanted to address that because I feel like that's extremely problematic, and hopefully it won't continue.
Marketing Director Rubin Nevada.
Yeah, because the reason why I brought up the nomination was because, from my understanding of Section 3 of the presidential bylaws, it says appoint members of the judicial branch as prescribed in the Constitution and judicial procedures. So that would imply that what the Constitution says, where it is a nomination by executive cabinet, that there would be a vote, there would be a meeting which is open to the public, that people could attend should they choose to. So that was kind of my reasoning behind it, and we didn't hear anything about it. But I personally, I don't know about the rest of the Senate or anything, but I would love if there was a formal meeting with the vote, that minutes be sent to everyone at least, so we can kind of look over a more thorough decision-making process. And once again, not to say that I had any issue with any of the justices, I would just like to be informed as well.
President Dr. Karen and Senator Keeper.
Yeah, so essentially, I don't think your expectations are actually in paper as of yet. Like, it does not require the ECAB meetings be open to public at all times, right? Nowhere is it written that ECAB meetings are all ECAB meetings are open to public, and I don't. I'm not assuming that that's what you're interpreting, but yes, point noted. All members will be consulted in the future, and we will have formal votes.
Senator Imran.
Yeah, this issue actually is an issue that I'm glad is on the floor now. Just going back to summer powers, same sort of situation. However, I won't expand on that too much. But Senator Herman Sang and I were in the computer lab today, just sort of talking about these very issues. So he and I are working on legislation now to come up with a reasonable time and transparency act, so that meeting agenda minutes are posted within a reasonable time to allow individuals to come to those meetings. And after the meeting is over, that the meeting minutes be posted in a reasonable time. That way, it will cut down on confusion, and everybody will have their right to say what they want to say before certain appointments are made or before certain actions are taken. For example, over the summer, although Senate was not in session, there were a few senators that would have loved to attend ECAB. I understand there was one member that did attend, President Pro Tempore. However, I would have loved to attend some ECAB meetings, and I know that there are other senators that were here versus during summer that would have loved to attend those meetings. So I think overall, if we can look into this Constitution or bylaws knowingly, we know that there are holes in the bylaws and Constitution. For example, it doesn't say when meeting minutes should be posted. There's no specific time. So us knowing these things, we need to take it upon ourselves to fix these loopholes so future governments won't have the same problem. So Senator Herman Sanger has already said that he would help me craft this resolution, whatever we want to call it, but it needs to be addressing reasonable time and transparency.
Okay. And next we'll hear from Vice President Abraham Belbaum.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily about an expectation that's not in writing. I think it's just about an expectation that students have in us in general that should be there regardless of if it's in writing or not. Because I don't think in any circumstance, any individual of the public expects us to have ECAB meetings that aren't public. I don't even think that's something that's even as a question, right? It's kind of just more of an assumption than an expectation that our executive cabinet meetings are open. And the reason why I'm clarifying this is because I at no point want to get everything that I've been doing through my office has really been aimed at making sure that we're more transparent in what we do and more engaging with students in what we do. So not having the ability for us to have those meetings, I think it's detrimental to us in AAS in terms of students' confidence in our executive cabinet, but also just people's engagement with AAS, because a lot of important things happen through executive cabinet that doesn't necessarily happen on the Senate horseshoe. And even though students can attend the horseshoe and see what the Senate's doing, a lot of the things that are really important of what AAS is doing are really happening through executive cabinet, right? Because we have the authority to do a lot of things on our own. So that's why I think it's very important for us to have those ECAB meetings, especially since, like, for example, now we no longer report at Senate meetings, so we don't have that avenue. That could be a great place to put it in ECAB meetings, right? So that's why I think I can see the frustration from senators in the sense of it not being completely open, and directors too, because it is really disappointing. Like, for example, if in the Constitution it says that executive cabinet appoints the judicial branch, there should have been a vote in terms of for executive cabinet. It's not necessarily that we should have been consulted, it's that there should have been a vote. And that's just an expectation from what the Constitution says, and not even from what the Constitution says, but just in the sense of like being equal to all members of executive cabinet, right? Because it's not even about me not having consultation, it's that if I would have disagreed with any of the candidates, or if I would have agreed with the candidates, I should have had the opportunity to vote against or for the candidates, right? And I should have had the opportunity to do that in any scenario. So at no point should I be questioning the fact that, will I be invited to the next consultation meeting for something important, right? Like, at no point should that even cross my mind. It should be an expectation that I'll be there and that I'll have a vote. And it should be an expectation that the directors that are not necessarily part of executive cabinet, but they work so closely with executive cabinet, will also be there to hear what the discussion is and to participate in the conversation. And senators, if they want to as well, and members of the public. That's been a tradition that we've had for a long time, where our executive cabinet meetings are open and we hold constant meetings. So we can't necessarily choose like when we want to follow traditions and when we don't want to follow traditions. We really have to be consistent in that regard. And everybody on this horseshoe knows that I'm by no means am someone who is all about following traditions. I think sometimes it can be dangerous to do so, but I do think that we need to be consistent in what we do. So if we want to like completely reverse a lot of things, then that should be what we do consistently. And if we're going to follow traditions, then that's what we should do consistently as well, so that people have a sense for what we're doing and they're able to act accordingly.
Okay. Next, we'll hear from Marketing Director Raveen Rathal.
Yeah, so just to kind of clear up the current situation in that case, just a couple questions I had was there an ECAB meeting? Was there a vote? And then I know you said, and you're absolutely correct, that you don't have to have an open meeting, but as VP External A mentioned, that's traditionally is how it's been done. So my third question would be, was it a closed meeting or was it an open meeting?
Okay, this was one. Okay, so what was the first one?
Was there an ECAB meeting?
Yeah. So essentially, it is under my understanding that with 3 ECAB members, quorum is met for a meeting. It was not an open meeting. So let me clarify, it was not an open meeting because personnel matters were being discussed. Therefore, according to the Constitution, we cannot have an open discussion in regards to when we are discussing personnel. But in any case, let me touch on something in terms of transparency and so I do not think that transparency is the holy grail answer of all situations and solutions. There are times that we should disclose information that are relevant and that the public would want to know. But there are other things like personnel matter that actually is not conducive to a healthy environment. So yeah, I do agree that when matters that are relevant to the public, that yes, we should disclose all information, and our office has been doing that. But some issues are not really the perfect fit to be openly disclosed unless you are fully informed on that subject matter, right? For example, if we disclose partial information in terms of what has happened at a meeting without you having background context of that situation, you will get a fully different, your view on that subject matter will be completely distorted compared to when you are fully involved. So, when all information will be disclosed to the public, but there is a time and place before, and a process that it has to go through before it's fully disclosed, so that the public gets full information rather than partial segregated information.
Okay. There is a speakers list, and at the moment, I'm going.
No,
we don't want to.
Okay, I'm going to read off the speakers list, and you can add yourself at the end. Currently, right now, we have Vice President Fernando Chavarria, and then Personnel Director, sorry, actually not Personnel, then we have Senator Herman Senga, and then President...
No, I'm going to hand over before you even
Listen, it was, the hands were ordered in the version that I saw. Okay, and so that's, we're going to have to,
That was definitely.
Stephanie didn't know. Okay, then we will hear Elections Director Stephanie Rose, and then President Pro Tempore Devin Palazzo, and then I saw Senator Jackie Jacoby.
Point of personal parliamentary procedure. Mr. Chairman, I recommend that because there are so many individuals on the horseshoe, I recommend that the staff, either the parliamentarian or the Senate Secretary, can be observant of the motions as people are requesting time, because as you are facilitating this meeting and looking down, there are motions or requests for time that come in a certain order, and they're not being honored in that order because they're not seen in that order. So if you can direct the Senate staff to keep their head on the swivel and be looking on the periphery to make sure that these motions or requests for time are granted in the order in which they are received.
Okay, I can make that modification. Thank you. Okay. Senator Summer Schaefer.
Thank you. Are we still under Finance Committee reports?
Yeah. Yes, we have yet to have moved on to subsection 2 Legislative Review Committee.
Point of parliamentary procedure. I was gonna say something that might be helpful to you is I know like for an undergrad committee of UCSA, like there's a bunch of people on that committee, so like something that I do is just like as I see people, write them down, and it's really helpful. So
I have that right.
Oh, okay, awesome. So I think that should help. Also, if somebody else wants to do it, so that you can be more engaged and like communicating would also be really helpful. But also in terms of parliamentary procedure, I was gonna ask, since we're in finance committee, I would ask Senate, or actually I guess I could do it myself, if we can, I want to see what everybody's thoughts are, and I want to just do a climate check of adding an agenda item as part of, so that we're not just like in this finance committee like without an actual regard to what we're doing, because we're out of order right now. So I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion of adding it somewhere else, or if we want to talk about it during closed session or whatnot. But I would make that recommendation that we should do something instead of just keeping like still talking about it right now.
Okay, a special motion can be made to be able to add this to another agenda item. Vice President Abraham Galvan has recommended this be added to closed session. You have
to closed session.
I second your objection.
The motion technically hasn't been made for to move into closed session. No, it was yes. So, are there any motions on the floor at this time?
I was going to motion because, out of respect of the audience watching us just like debate for this long, to have it moved to closed session, these conversations, because they're not really going to or just this conversation. Like
do not speak out of turn. We can have a speaker.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Thank you.
Senator Summer Schaefer.
I motion to add an agenda item after public forum, so that any of those in the audience that would like to speak are able to speak before we continue this debate in open session.
I second that motion.
In that motion, would we preserve the speakers list, please?
Yes, I can preserve the speakers list, and I'll keep it as is. I'll read it out beforehand, and then I will add names before we begin. Okay, are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed by the motion made by Senator Summer Schaefer, seconded by Vice President Abraham Galvan. All those in favor of moving this debate to a separate agenda item following public forum, all those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. All right, by a vote of 14-0, this motion passes. We will now move. It will now be section J, roundtable announcements, closed session adjournment will all now be moved before. Considering that is the matter, okay, we will proceed with our regularly scheduled program. And we will hear from subsection 2, our Legislative Review Committee. President Pro Tempore Devin Plaza, you have the floor.
Hi everyone. So to start off, if you could pull up the bill ratifying amendments to the charter of the University of California Student Association. We'll start there. In LRC, as you all saw in your emails, we reviewed 4 documents. I'll start here. Abraham, if you want to go over anything or if there are any questions regarding content or any issues you all have with the document. Abraham.
Yeah, I'll give some background. So, as a UCSA Board of Directors, we made some amendments to our charter just to make it more practical, to reflect the fact that we're a nonprofit now, and our 501c3 status. You can read, I'm sure you've all read the actual amendments already, but basically just, those are the amendments that we made on the UCSA Board of Directors, but because of our charter, we have to have member associations ratify those amendments before they can take effect. So right now, a bill like this or similar like this should be going through every UCSA member campus, and basically you just have to vote to pass this. And then once the other campuses do the same thing, the amendments to the charter will be ratified. And that's it, really.
Any questions, comments? LRC went through this. There were just a few issues regarding spacing between periods and things like that. But this is like the official document, that everything that's italicized, so we couldn't really change it. But if there are no further issues, if there's a motion to approve.
Okay. Understanding our procedure, after it passes through LRC, the first round in Senate is for us to deliberate, and then following that, a week later, we can ratify unless there is a complete consensus around a piece of legislation. Complete consensus. If there is even one senator who objects, then we will proceed with the process as follows. Vice President.
Point of parliamentary procedure. So, I have a question in regards to that because could you tell us where in the bylaws it specifies that the required reading period? Because I know that this has been something that even since last year we were kind of unsure about when it came to legislation, and I never took it upon myself, so like go figure it out. But I don't know if you know where in the bylaws it addresses the required reading section, because I do think it would be important for even things that we don't have total consensus of, but like if like 1 or 2 people disagree, it's not necessarily about people agreeing to the content, it's if people have had the opportunity to look at it and research it and stuff like that. So I think there could very well be a scenario where everybody has like read the resolution and fully understood it, but like 2 people disagree with it. So I think in that sense it wouldn't make any sense to like wait on a vote. I think we should be as quick as possible in getting things through, because people rely a lot of times on these resolutions getting through to show that they have support from the AS. And I know that especially towards the end of the quarter, something like this could potentially back us up a lot. So I don't know where exactly in the bylaws it specifies required reading. Because if so, I would suggest that we just move forward with a process of just voting regularly after LRC approves them. And of course, Senate can always on the floor make a motion to table it till next week. If like a lot of senators don't feel like they have enough information, or even just one senator doesn't feel like they have enough information, they can simply make a motion to table it or to postpone the vote. So it's essentially would serve the same function without creating like a systematic process for that.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to respond to that. The 7-day reading period is not in the bylaws. It is a matter of procedure, and it's one that's usually held between Legislative Review Committee and the chair. And the purpose of this is, of course, to ensure that not only is the content of the legislation being reviewed scrutinized, but also the sources from which the legislation comes from. Because we need to legislate, much of the legislation that comes to our table will often have outside third sources for facts, statistics, any kind of data that might be relevant to the matter we're discussing. And so, unfortunately, during the deliberation, we'll be able to discuss content, but fact-checking sources is something that requires a little bit longer of a time. Now, as I mentioned previously, unless there is consensus on that this can proceed with tonight's vote, the system that is the default system is that once it passes through LRC, there's a 24-hour reading review period, and that is when we're able to discuss content, the substance, how people feel, and then a following week for fact-checking of sources to make sure that everything on the document is as it says and is accurate. Now, however, in terms of this legislation, as I said before, we can move with a vote, but only if there are no Senate objections onto whether or not there needs to be more information, or they don't feel comfortable having a vote at this time. Senator T. Brown, Senator Delaney Koenig, and then Vice President O'Connell.
I move to call the question.
We're kind of debating about whether there's a question.
Unfortunately, that point isn't in order, but I will note that. Thank you. Senator Delaney Koenig.
Both of those systems are accomplishing the same purpose. It's just a motion one way or the other, to my understanding.
Right.
Because we'd either be motioning to vote or not to vote, so I don't see how changing it either way would really affect anything.
The one would require essentially a senator to make the motion that they might disagree. Essentially, if they make the motion to table it, that especially is for more controversial items that come up, that has its own perception, and so that's why the default system is there. So that rather than it being a proactive thing that has to be done for it to wait a week, it is the default to ensure that essentially the process takes place. It's a thoroughness that I understand there is a slight trade-off when it comes to how fast that we push out legislation as opposed to how thorough we review it. And it's after critical thinking, it's really been the decision of this chair that critical weighing of legislation outweighs how fast that we pass it.
Yeah, so in that regard, I would say, yeah, both the regular parliamentary procedure already allows for that. The main difference would be that in this case, if one person thinks that they don't have enough information to vote, it would have to wait a week. Whereas in the regular parliamentary procedure, so if somebody motioned to table it because they don't feel like they have enough information, it would take a majority vote of the Senate that also agrees that they don't have enough information to decide. I don't see why one individual that doesn't feel like they have enough information or haven't been able to go through it should be able to make the process slower. I think it should take a majority of the Senate to decide that they don't have enough information for the process to go through.
There's actually a very specific reason why that is. It's because in the sense of where you have a very close vote, one vote can be a tiebreaker. We have a very select Senate, only 16, and so with close votes, one senator makes all the difference. Now, like I mentioned, it is not a matter of bylaws, it is a matter of procedure. And we will continue with that procedure. Unless
in that case, I apologize, but I have a motion. I move to object to the decision of the chair and to revert back to regular parliamentary procedure in which you have to move to table legislation for it to be postponed to the next week.
I'll second that motion. Request for information. Does that motion just mean right now and today, or for the rest of?
For the rest.
For the rest of the year?
No, you can only make a motion that would affect this particular meeting.
Well, your decision is in regards to all meetings. I'm objecting to your decision in regards to how the meetings are ran in general.
Point of information. Wouldn't we have to pass a bill in order to limit your discretion as chair?
No,
no, essentially at this point, if we can do explanations. If the Senate feels that a system of where a senator has to make the motion to table a piece of legislation until next week should be the standard operating procedure, then it is in their power to be able to make that call. I was simply explaining my rationale of why we have the original system in place. As far as pertains to the timeliness of the previous years, there is no additional timeline that's given to legislation heard. Previously, the legislation that was heard was the same window of time that we are hearing it now. And as I recall, we passed the most legislation that any AS has done last year, and so I'm pretty sure there really wasn't a track record of us delaying student legislation.
Also, point of information based on your motion. So essentially, the Senate would have 1 day after.
Point of order. That's not a point of information.
Point of inquiry.
That's not
It's a commentary. But I can.
No, I'm asking if that's true.
Request for information.
Okay, so request for information. So essentially, based on that motion, it would be that Senate would have 1 day to review the legislation before voting on it, correct?
Not necessarily, because at any point, if for example, we have a controversial piece of legislation that somebody feels like they don't have enough information, then they can easily make a motion and say, I don't think in this case that day is enough, so I would like to motion to postpone it to the next meeting. It's as easy as making a motion for that. And I'm sure that if the rest of the senators know that this is a very hefty piece of legislation, then they would be able to make that decision. Also, the current system that we have in place has been problematic in the past. I don't know if any senators that were here last year remember, but it's really restricted the way that we're able to amend bylaws and whatnot during the meeting, because last year we had the fossil-free UC resolution that came through, and we made one amendment with one, and we added one thing that needed to have a source, and because we didn't follow the 7 days, and that's how we were running it as per the chair's decision, then judicial knocked off that resolution because of that. So that's why I think it's also helpful to not have that as a default, and instead to have the ability for senators to be able to motion if they need more time. So that doesn't happen in the future if we ever want to make amendments and whatnot.
Right.
But at this point, I move to call the question.
Okay. There is a motion on the floor right now on a appeal to the chair's decision on whether or not to revert the decision on how we will be reviewing legislation. At this point, the motion is that we will hear legislation within 24 hours and vote on it unless the senator objects and moves to table that motion. All right, so
the whole Senate.
It'd have to be the majority of Senate that objects, yes. And that is the parliamentary procedure that would work out. So just to give another just brief description. Sending everything you know. Okay.
I have a quick question. Like a parliamentary procedure or request for information, I'm not sure. But before we call the question, I was just wondering if there is a way in the current system where if there's a piece of legislation that absolutely needed to be passed that the Senate meeting following the legislative review, is there a way that you can pass that legislation?
Yes. Yes. Like I mentioned before, if the Senate is in consensus about hearing legislation that night and has no qualms, then you're able to move forward. I simply reserved a minority opposition because hearing within 24 hours is highly unusual, and usually there would have to be, for the most part, there's the understanding that senators would have a consensus because they already thoroughly understand the subject that's being presented. And so yes, that does exist in the system to have a very quick vote. So this will require a 2/3 majority on appeal to the decision of the chair. Is there anyone who requires me to restate the motion, or is everybody? Yeah. Okay. So the motion made by Vice President Abraham Galvan is on procedure of how we will review legislation, and that we will hear and vote on it within 24 hours of it coming out of LRC, unless a senator with majority backing moves to table it for the following Senate meeting.
Wait, that's the same thing?
No.
That is
Yeah. Okay.
It's the same thing. You just frame it. Okay, so we had a second by Senator Akeem Brown. All right, so this does require a 2/3 majority vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstaining. All right, at 10-3-1, the motion passes. Okay, Just to review, what it passed is that the new procedure on which we'll be following on reviewing legislation, after it comes out of LRC, it will be then emailed to you, and you will have 24 hours to review the legislation and vote on it. And if there are any objections, with the consensus of the Senate, you can motion to table the topic until the following. Okay, so at this time, I now open up the floor for motions for the bill ratifying the Charter of the University of California Student Association.
A motion to pass the bill.
Okay. Motion by Marketing Director Rabin Rathod, seconded by Senator Herman Senga. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. All right, at 13:01, that motion passes. I love democracy.
Okay, my next item will be, sorry everyone, bear with me. My report might be a little lengthy tonight. So my next item is the Transfer Non-Traditional Student Task Force bylaws. Actually, I'm going to push those back because it corresponds with something else. We'll do Diversity Council bylaws, if you could pull those up for me, please. These bylaws, there's just one change. It should be highlighted in yellow on page 2. And it is to add 2 members to the council, one from Undocumented Resource Center and one from International Student Resource Center. And the formatting of section 3, subsection A, subsection C in the original document, the formatting was a little off, so it's just correcting the formatting. Are there any questions?
I have a motion to amend. So section C, I can't see the third subsection of that. I believe that should say ASUCR Office of the Vice President of Campus Internal Affairs. Because, yeah, so, because I know that he has a Commissioner of Diversity that attends. It's not himself personally.
Okay.
But other than that, I think it's a great idea to add these resource centers. When we first developed Diversity Council, it was, unfortunately, like the Undocumented Resource Center was still getting established and the International Student Extension Center wasn't in those conversations, so I think it's great to have them on there.
Anything else anyone noticed while they were going through and reading this? Discrepancies, anything you wanted to bring to Senate's attention?
I know that with the representative, some of the departments already have a position for an ex officio, whereas others are not. Are we getting involved with those departments to see how they would be sending those representatives? I know that you all met on Friday already. Did we have a problem with any departments or anyone that's involved not showing up?
The only issue we had is that they just had a lot going on that day. There was a lot of preparations for different events, one of them being the Dia de los Muertos, so we gave people like opportunities to just kind of miss because it was kind of short notice. But we just kind of fixed the doodle a little bit. We had some other individuals because not everyone had responded yet. Everyone had at least the one representative, but not everyone had responded. So it is only one representative, but we wanted to have the backup as well. And then we just made another doodle to kind of also have those people respond.
Can I respond to that? So one thing that I had a question for is, being that I'm chair for Grasa Assembly, we don't have the ex officio position held, and I would recommend being included in the doodle, just because of the fact that, it is the department, but I don't know, as I last looked at it, it's ex officio that represents Chicano student programs, but we don't have that position filled for Grasa Assembly. We're actually going through elections now to fill that position.
So the process that's actually taken is that we contact Estella, for example. She will actually pass, and she'll handle it. So we don't actually look for the ex officio. We contact the actual program office, and then they bring us a person.
Okay, thank you.
We have parliamentary procedure, so with the amendments, we cannot vote on this tonight, correct?
You can. No, you can, the review of the procedure is that if there is a senator who feels that there's not enough information to be able to make this vote, they feel that it should not be heard this soon, then they are able to table it for the following week, and with the majority of Senate, that would pass.
Wait, what question?
Yeah. Okay. There are two.
It would actually be a move to amend, not necessarily table it. You said table, but the question was more so directed as a move to amend. I believe the question was, can it be moved to amend right here in the meeting? And yes,
yes.
You would ask for a move to amend.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant voting on it after the amendments.
That's what I meant.
Oh.
It's clarified. So, are there any further changes? Anything grammatically that you noticed? If there are no further changes or anything, if someone would like to. If there's a motion perhaps to approve or to table.
Okay. I now open up the floor for motions.
I move, because I don't think my motion went through earlier. I move to amend, I'll just do it again. I move to amend that section to say ASUCR Office of the Vice President of Campus and General Affairs.
I second that.
Could you read back your amendment so that the Senate Secretary can make the proper modifications to the document?
Yeah, just adding office of the, right there in the third section, right there. Go down. Right there. ASUCR Office of the Vice President of Campus and General Affairs.
ASUCR Office of the Vice President of Campus and General Affairs.
Yeah.
Okay. Substantial. Okay, I now open the floor for motions. Senator Kima.
Accept the amendment as is. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? And abstain. By vote of 14-0, that motion passes. The document has been so amended.
Right. So now there's a motion for the ratification of the bylaw.
Okay, motion by Senator Ali Isles. Do I have a second?
I just have a point of parliamentary procedure, or parliamentary inquiry. So, as per these bylaws, Diversity Council has to approve the amendments. 2/3 vote of Diversity Council has to approve them before they go to Senate. So I wasn't sure if they did. Okay, great.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Motion by Senator Ali Isles, and I believe I saw Senator Jason Ramirez's hand for a second.
I second that.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of passing the Diversity Council bylaw updates? All right, all those opposed? And abstain. By a vote of 14-0, this motion passes.
Okay, moving on to the Transfer Non-Traditional Student Task Force bylaws. If you could pull up that document whenever you're ready. This is a new document. It's modeled off of the Diversity Council. For those of you who were unaware, we're not the resolution yet. If you could get the transfer bylaws, sorry for the confusion. Okay, so the changes don't really show up on this document, but most were formatting and for consistency, we added campus internal affairs in front of some of them just to clarify, similarly to the previous bylaw, and ASUCR personnel director, and just kind of commas and things in places that needed to be. Are there any questions, comments? I'll open the floor.
Any hands? Okay, seeing none, we can now receive
have a comment.
President,
it's not necessarily pertaining to the bylaw itself, but a lot of issues that we had in terms of the Senate chamber is like not maximizing its utility, because we only use it like once a week, and LRC use it sometimes. But I think it would be really great if these diversity council and this specific task force is really there. When you look at them, they're projects of AS to like help groups of students that are traditionally not underprivileged and don't have resources to have their meetings. I don't know what the possibility of it is, but I think it'd be a really great idea if they could utilize this space for their meetings, especially if it would be open for members of the public to come in and talk and whatnot. Just because I know like one big issue that we've always said is like we spend so much money on this room and we don't use it that much. So that would be, I think, one great way that we could use it and like help give exposure to these new committees that maybe don't have much exposure yet, and it'll be hard for them to attain if they're just like meeting in some conference room every now and then. So it's just an idea.
No, I definitely agree that the Diversity Council carries a special weight in trying to reach the public. And so we can, you should discuss the matter with me privately on opening up the Senate chambers. We'll discuss that. Okay. I now open up the floor for motions at this time. Senator Jackson.
I move to pass these bylaws.
Okay, motion by Senator Jackie Jacoby, seconded by Senator Keith Brown. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. By a vote of 14-0, this passes.
Okay, the last item of my report is a resolution written by Senator Keith Brown, and it is regarding declaring November as Transfer Awareness and Recognition Month. If you could pull up that whenever you get the chance. And Akeem, if you want to speak on behalf of your resolution.
Okay. All right. This is in response to a collaboration presentation I proposed last week, and this is also a response to the consensus of the alliance, the Transfer Commuter Alliance. So this resolution states a bunch of facts. It states who the alliance is and what they do. It states what ASUCR is and what ASUCR does. It states the Vice Chancellors of Student Affairs Office and what they do, and the information is taken directly from the Vice Chancellor's website. If you can scroll down a little bit more. Then it goes on to state what Governor Jerry Brown has called as a state for the state of California. So as you can see, the levels of authority continue to rise until we finally reach the state of California. So Governor Jerry Brown, who signed in the Student Success Act of 2012, is a fact. We can scroll down just a little bit more. The second thing that was done subsequent to Governor Jerry Brown legislation is President Janet Napolitano convened a transfer action team. And so that's another fact that's stated here in our whereas clauses. So as you can see, it's starting off as the group, the alliance, what ASUCR does, what the Vice Chancellor's office does per the Vice Chancellor's website, what Governor Jerry Brown has passed in legislation in the state of California, as well as what our very own University of California president has recommended be done for transfer students. I think that this is a monumental gesture for students who are trying to get here and be in the position that we are. And I think it's you're doing a good job sort of gesture to those students who have made it here, and to encourage them to take advantage of these opportunities in a short amount of time. So again, lastly, the hope is that this resolution is passed. You've heard support from Assemblyman Jose Medina. He was a high school school teacher for 34 years. He also sat on the RCC Community College District, and he is also on the Higher Education Affairs Committee here in our state. So do we have support? Yes, we have support. Will we be the first to do something like this? Yes, we will. And that's why I urge you to support this resolution. Thank you.
Senator Delaney.
I think it's a fantastic idea. My question, I didn't have time to read it before this, but when it says in the first paragraph that they transferred from a California community college, is there any way that in the future we could maybe extend that to any community college, or just starting in California?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. But particularly, this is our state.
Okay.
We're looking to increase enrollment into our public universities. So I think we can make that more amend in the future. But I'm not.
The one thing that I did think about is that there may be transfer students from out of state. However, I didn't get the opportunity to investigate how their community colleges systems work. For example, in Cincinnati, their 2-year university is a degree granting institution, a 4-year degree granting institution. So their state university is equivalent to our community college. So the preliminary I did look around, but California is the only state that has it tiered like the way it is. So it's beneficial for us here.
Thank you.
Vice President Randall.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if this resolution does pass, even though there's no specific actionable item requesting me to do so, I'll be introducing, I want to actually talk to Akeem to draft a version that I can introduce to the University of California Student Association. So if you all pass this and I see that there's support on our campus, now that I know there's also support from an assembly member, I would love to bring it to the UC Student Association for the UCSA to also endorse something like this for the University of California as a whole. And I think it'll also kind of give weight to this resolution a little bit more in that regard as well.
Okay. Are there other points at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I now open up the floor for motions.
I move to pass the resolution.
Okay. Motion by Vice President Campus Internal Affairs, Fernando Echeverria. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Senator Davis. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. By a vote of 14-0, this motion passes.
And to conclude my report, I just want to clarify LRC meetings are Tuesdays at 5 p.m. In the ASUCR conference room. For those of you in the galley who are interested, the office will be locked, but if you shoot me an email at ASUCR/pro-tempore@ucr.edu and let me know you're coming, I'll be more than happy to come let you in. I know we had a few visitors, Fernando and Abraham, last week, and you're more than welcome to come and listen. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, President Pro Tempore Devin Plaza. We're now moving on with Section I in Public Forum. Public Forum is dedicated to the galley. For members, for those who have attended our Senate meetings and have been waiting very, very patiently, we now open the floor to you to address business that you would like to send your own student representatives to hear. This could be matters that you have heard being discussed, or it could be new business entirely. And so at this time, I now open up the floor to the galley. If you wish to speak to Senate, please just come up and behind the podium and say your name for minute purposes. Not all at once. Okay, moving on. We will now proceed with the added agenda item on which we made a motion for. Just to clarify, there will be a process for this. I do have speakers list, and we will make use of that. So, to begin with, we have, first up, Vice President of Campus Internal Affairs, Fernando Echeverria, then Senator Herman Sanga, Elections Director Stephanie Rose, President Pro Tempore Devin Plaza, Senator Akeem Brown. And this was the order as kept by my parliamentarian, correlated with the system that I kept myself. Now I can add additional hands to be heard after that. And so simply hold it out. All right, so we have Marketing Director Rabin Rathod, Vice President of External Affairs, Abraham Galvan, and Outreach Director Jessica Raquez, and President Nafi Kamara.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege.
Okay. While I will not set a time limit, please try to keep your statements within a couple of minutes for efficiency's sake. Okay. Fernando Echeverria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the first things I want to start off with is that you said transparency is not the holy grail. I think that that's a problematic direction that you're taking the office in, especially since not all of us, first of all, you said consultation. As far as the bylaws state, it's not just a consultation, it's also a vote. So all of us need to be included, and the problem is that we weren't included at all. There wasn't actually like, it would have been okay if you would have said, hey, we're having this meeting and only Iris and Michael showed up. But the problem is that you never actually notified us at all, and that we had to find out while we were sitting on the Senate floor getting ready to vote for something. And the other point I want to bring up is that this is a little bit treading on eggshells, because this can very well be grounds for judicial review. Because you didn't follow procedure, and if someone here in the Senate decides to motion or submit something against you, they could very well change the interpretation, because your interpretation is not the end all. At the end, we can go to the justices, and that's a process that we can go through. So I just want to make sure that you watch out, especially when you're talking about like us and what we thought. You said that we approved it in the meeting. That could be misconstrued in the beginning of the meeting. You said that we had a meeting. We didn't have a meeting. So then all these little things that are going around the horseshoe, it becomes more of a problem. So I just want to make sure that we have to work on our transparency. That's something that we should continue, that tradition. Because yeah, Senate meetings, our executive meetings exist, especially since we don't have room to share with the public. Senators should be allowed to come because they don't get to know what we're up to. Maybe they want to join one of our projects. And to be honest with everyone, we haven't had an executive meeting yet. So we haven't even had one. So if we want to be real here, we need to actually address the issue at hand. We need to have executive meetings since we're not having them. And second of all, if I can tell this to one of the senators, if you want to submit a case of judicial review, go for it.
Okay. Now I hear from Senator Herman Sange.
Yeah, I agree with literally everything Fernando just said, but to, for those of you that haven't noticed, I tend to be a little constitutionalist. So once again, I brought up the Constitution. And in Article 4, Section 5, it very explicitly talks about executive branch meetings, and it states, and you can bring this up if you want, but the executive cabinet shall meet 5 times per quarter, and it also says more if necessary, and then also in a quorum is 3 members. However, if you look at Article 5, Section G, meetings, all official meetings of ASUCR, including ASUCR Senate, including subcommittees and subordinate committees, shall be open to the public. These committees can go into closed session if needed. However, you cannot say, or in my interpretation of the Constitution is you cannot say that due to personnel matters we started off with a closed meeting. It should be open meeting and then go to closed. There should be at least 5 meetings per quarter. In that same Section G, under Article 5, it says that all of these meetings there should be a 48-hour notice given not only personally to the senators, but it should also be posted on the ASUCR front door. So, and by all means, bring up the Constitution. We can look at that and discuss that right now if needed. However, I agree with Fernando. A lot of things here are very questionable, and I will say right now, I will be filing a judicial review for this. Because in my opinion, the Constitution is not being followed.
Okay. We'll now hear from Elections Director Stephanie Rose.
The only point that I wanted to make, I wrote it down, was you mentioned there were 3 ECAB members there, so I'm at quorum. I kind of feel like that justification is very unfair because it seems like you selectively chose who was there to meet quorum. So I think that kind of goes against the whole purpose of quorum. So I would say it's the same as if we decided that half of the horseshoe was not allowed to vote and this half was. The other thing I wanted to mention was I attended every ECAB meeting this summer. I know most of the directors were there as well, and although we don't have a vote in this type of procedure, I do think different perspectives would be beneficial to something like that as well.
Okay, thank you. We will now hear from President Pro Tempore Devin Plaza.
Piggybacking off of what Elections Director Stephanie just said, I was also at pretty much every ECAB meeting this summer. We were notified the day and time. I'm curious as to know if there's an ECAB meeting time set right now for the quarter, and if there is, like, why those who were informed over summer aren't informed, and maybe if you can announce it if there is a time, or maybe set a time so we all know, because I know I like to stay informed, especially because if I am going to be in between Senate and ECAB, and people are coming to me with questions and I'm uninformed and I'm saying, you know, oh, I don't know if there's an ECAB meeting or what's going on. I think there needs to be at least a set time, and like it's been brought up before, if there are minutes from these meetings, they need to be public. They need to be sent out to everyone, just so we are informed, because it goes back to the issue with transparency, and if there's no transparency within our own cabinet and who sits on this horseshoe, then how can we have transparency with the student body? So I really think that it starts here, and so we all need to be informed on these meetings as well as the public.
Okay, thank you. We'll now hear from Senator Keith Brown.
Yeah, just piggybacking on what the entire conversation has been, this is why I propose that we draft a Transparency and Accountability Act as a symbolic gesture.
There's one.
There is.
There is one.
Okay. How about reasonable time? Okay. But the point is, we know the rules. We need to play the rules correctly, not manipulate them. As Herman mentioned earlier, I'm a strict constructionist too. I like the rules to go as they're written and not interpretation for any type of personal gain. But the rules that are set are rules that we ought to follow. If we know that the Constitution has a hole in it, for example, a prescribed time as when a meeting minutes should be posted, we ought to fix that, because I guarantee you this issue will come up next summer. There may be another Akeem Brown or Delevin Palazzo who's very active during the summer and wants to be informed. And I felt like this summer that it was my right to know. And in private discussions, the explanation was that since Senate is not over the summer, then what is Senate going to do if they're prescribed to only be there for 9 months? But I would argue that if there's someone who's there that wants to know what's going on, they should be in the know. So I would urge us to go ahead and fix those areas of the Constitution where we know they can be bent. Like knowing that Senate is not in session over the summer and there is no time when Senate should be given summer meeting minutes. From what I understand, there were 10 meetings over the summer. We didn't get the minutes until 1 week before our first meeting. So that means from actually whenever the first meeting was, I believe it was July, up until the last meeting in September, which was the meeting to plan our retreat, you all met and we did not know anything. And I think that that's a problem. Reasonable time frame and transparency. We need to know what's going on, because when we come in after Senate, when our break is over, we're burdened not only with just beginning new classes and trying to get the feel for how the classes are going, but we're also have to uphold our oath and obligation that we gave to these students. So if that is to be streamlined, then there has to be reasonable time of posting of minutes, and there should be more transparency. And my last point to transparency, transparency is one of the biggest topics in our government today. Nobody knows what's going on. In order for our government to be successful and do what it's supposed to do, provide representation for students, we need to have transparency, not only for ourselves, but for the students to be able to hold us accountable. Every single one of us swore to an oath, and every single one of us should uphold that oath. And so again, I would urge us to go through, and where we know for sure there are loopholes in this Constitution and bylaws, we ought to fix them so the next administration does not inherit this problem, and they won't have to spend. Everybody wants to talk on the topic. We've been debating this since previously and now. So again, let's take it upon ourselves. If we're all progressive and active, let's get active and change the rules so they can be better for the next government. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification on your point. It is the responsibility of the Executive Vice President to take minutes during the summer ECAB meetings. And I was in Uganda for most of the summer. And so when I returned, from different sources, I managed to gather the notes that were taken and compile them. I understand that the timeline might not have been as efficient as you'd have liked. I tried to give them as soon as I could, and I sent them out with at least 7 days before the first Senate meeting. I definitely understand your concerns, and I just wanted to make sure that that was noted. We can. Sorry, Coach, what
yeah, it's just a quick comment. At the meetings, I was under the impression that Chief of Staff at the time was taking minutes. So if that's the case, then it's not an attack against you at all, but I was under the impression that minutes were being taken, so just why those weren't sent out. Yeah, we were told that there were minutes being taken, and they weren't by you, obviously.
Right, I took what I could, and then I got different sources. Senator Jack, did you go?
Yeah, but it was just that basically. In the past, I was Chief of Staff last year, and I took notes at every single meeting, and it was basically like that. ECAB didn't take notes, I did, and so if there was Chief of Staff working the summer office meetings, then they should have been taken. If not, then those duties weren't fulfilled by them. That's an issue.
We continue with the speakers list. And next we're hearing from Marketing Director Ruby Lafon.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, to address some of the point President Napi brought up. One of the things he said was that if we aren't going to be fully informed about the decision-making process, we would have a distorted view. I disagree with that statement. I feel like if that was the case, then the 1-minute spiel we heard from each justice would definitely not qualify as a full view, and therefore, by that logic, everyone should have abstained from the vote in the first place. Second, you mentioned that there will be a process for disclosing information to the public that must be followed. If you can go into that process on how to disclose information regarding these appointments, that would be fantastic. My other thing is, I'd like to echo what Senator Herman said. They have to be a public meeting. They can move into closed session, and that's totally okay. We understand that there are personnel matters, so that's fine, but it should have been a public meeting. It should have been advertised. The senators didn't know about it. Apparently, many of ECAB members didn't know about it. The directors definitely didn't know about it, which brings me to my next point, where that I understand, directors aren't ECAB, but we still go there, but we're not. It's just all confusing. But my only point is that traditionally directors have been included in ECAB meetings, and for you to now say that they haven't, I think that's a huge disservice. I know almost all the directors over summer were commuting every week, over an hour. Jessica drove from LA every week, and to not have even, first of all, to not even be invited into ECAB meetings again, or to not even have any of the points ECAB brought up mentioned in any summer minutes is highly disappointing. We had tons of important stuff, and none of that was in any of our minutes. So when I reviewed it, that was very surprising to see that none of our points were ever recorded. Next, and I may agree, I know where you're coming from when you say transparency is not the holy grail. It doesn't necessarily have to be that first thing that we always strike, but when things appear clouded like they are currently, I think it is very necessary to have transparency so we can get to the bottom of this without any clouded judgment. And, once again, if the EVP isn't there, which is understandable, there should have been an alternative. We were told repeatedly that the Chief of Staff is the alternative, so I don't think there was any question about that. And even if the Chief of Staff wasn't taking minutes, from my understanding, the EVP was at this meeting that took place to talk about personnel matters, so I still don't see minutes from that. So once again, that's problematic as well.
Next, we have Vice President of External Affairs, Abraham Belmont. Yes.
Okay, so you all know that I'm definitely upset by this. You'll know that I definitely have opinions on things, and I like to have every opportunity I can to say my opinion. So obviously I'm upset about this. I was the one that first brought up the point that I am really upset about not being included. So I do agree with the sentiments that everybody's saying in the sense that there couldn't have been a meeting because we weren't even notified that it was taking place. I understand if it was closed session. Just to clarify some things, you are allowed to have closed sessions established before you start a meeting. However, there's always open parts of meetings. Like the adjournment is always an open part, and then you can immediately move into closed session. but there's always open parts. But you can establish closed sessions beforehand. You don't necessarily have to vote. So I do want to like address that. But what I was gonna say is, even in closed sessions, like we should have been notified. I think the main issue isn't that there was a closed session or that only you and Iris were there, or that only Iris and Michael were there, but just the fact that we weren't even told that this was gonna happen. Like I feel like that's a complete disservice because, for example, like Fernando and I and Raveen have been here the whole time that we've been at UCR. We've been involved with ASUCR, so we've been able to see what ASUCR has looked like for 3 years now. And I feel like that definitely confers upon us kind of an idea of what is going on. So I just feel kind of like when something like this happens, I feel really kind of like, I guess, underappreciated for our value as executive cabinet members. And I'm sure that the directors, even if they haven't necessarily been here for the 3 years that we have, would also feel the same way, right? So I see that, and I would say that we all have to be very careful in the way that we talk about issues and the way that we frame them, because any small soundbite can sound really bad. Like transparency is not the holy grail, because if you take it out of context, like I think a lot of us on the Senate understand what you mean in the sense that we have to have transparency in mind, but we can't always accommodate for transparency completely. But I don't think that necessarily that message would be conveyed to everybody. Like for example, that reads the Highlander or that is here in the galley as easily. So I would say like be very careful of that. But because I want this conversation to also be productive instead of us just like saying how we think it's wrong, what I would recommend we do moving forward, I don't recommend anybody goes to judicial review because that's not even a possibility. Anybody that was involved that just got appointed as a justice would have to recuse themselves, and at that point we wouldn't have quorum. So it's not even a possibility to submit judicial review. So that's why I would recommend against it, because you can't even really do it. So unfortunately, I recognize that puts us in a really awkward position, kind of like a catch-22 for what we're doing. But I think this is just an opportunity for us to learn. Fortunately, depending, because of what we saw the votes, I know that the justices that we did elect, we have, the Senate feels like they are capable of performing. I don't think that they should be in any way hurt, because I don't think that they were aware that this procedure was followed in the way that it was. So I don't think that it would be fair for them to be removed from their positions or whatnot. So that's why I would recommend that we just move forward and take this opportunity as really an opportunity to learn and to have an understanding that in the future all executive cabinet members should be consulted, and that any executive cabinet meeting for any decision whatsoever should be fully open to the public and obviously to the members of the executive cabinet. So that's just my suggestion. I think at this point we're really going in circles as a conversation, so I would suggest that we move on, but of course I don't want to disenfranchise anybody that wanted to say anything, so if you want to continue with the speakers list, that's fine, but that's just what I see at this point.
Continuing on with the speakers list, we have our outreach director, Jessica Keys.
Thank you. So first things first, I also wanted to piggyback with everybody with the transparency being an issue. I don't feel that any meeting should start closed, as long as everyone said. I understand that there can be meetings that are closed when you make a decision, but that's when you establish the date and time of the meeting. So ahead of time, you know that these will be closed sessions and these will be open. But even then, from my understanding that everyone's saying there, you have not met this quarter, and you have not set a date and time. And if you did meet, that should be open, in my opinion, to all the public. Another thing I wanted to know is exactly, I had told myself that I was going to say it, is on the minutes of the summers, I worked very hard. I made so many different meetings. I met with departments, I met with chairs, Joe Grata, everyone, and it was just so difficult. You can ask Maggie, you can ask everyone that we were working with. There's so many people to name, but that was not included in anything of the summer. And every ECAB meeting I attended as well. I did attend summer school, so I had a set schedule, but I did go home because I was working over the summer and I would have to drive all the way back from LA. And it was a bit frustrating because there was times when our meetings would run longer or run late or start late. But I feel that, that's an issue that we did address over the summer, and that's fine. But again, stating that traditionally directors were a part of ECAB, I would hope that we're still going to be allowed at the meetings and be considered as ECAB members, whether that be explicitly in the bylaws or in the Constitution. That's up to anyone else's discretion to take on the responsibility of changing it there. But I do feel that we should have a set time. It should be known to the public as well as the actual ECAB members and the directors and to everyone else.
Great, thank you. Okay. Next we have President Nafikuru.
Okay. So, let me be clear in that, am I against transparency? No. But I think we give the public a false sense of reality when we say all meetings are transparent. So, let me address why I said that. Last year, it's been said multiple times where, yes, ECAB meetings are open to public, but we actually didn't know when ECAB meetings were or how to get access to the ECAB meetings. So I was not willing to go ahead and say, oh yes, all meetings are meetings are open to public, come along, and then not actually mean that, right? So if that wasn't the case, I was not going to say, yes, it's open to public. All meetings are open to public. That's not actually the case. It's also been said in the past where judicial meetings are open to public. But no, in reality, in practice, it was not open to public. It was not accessible to the public. So, if we decide that yes, we want to make everything open to the public, then we have to take extra measures to make them open to the public. I have no problem making them open to the public, and we can email that out just like Senate meetings, right? That can happen. But we can't say it's open to public, but really we don't advertise it adequately, so it's not actually open to the public. So why did I say that not everything, like why is transparency not the holy grail? Well, sometimes you deal with sensitive information that you don't have the whole grasp of the information, right? So even if you as the student leaders do not have grasp of the information, how can you present it or take the lead to the public? So, for example, like if you all deal with communities, you all deal with certain issues, we would be being dishonest to say that we have never had a private meeting, or there is never a need for a private meeting. We have private meetings internally, right? We discuss things and solve things internally. Why is that? Because you use those private meetings so that you can speak and discuss and have ideas be considered candidly without having to be scared about, oh, how am I going to look to the public, right? Because you haven't come up with a solution yet, you're just brainstorming. But when you're brainstorming, being under the microscope really hampers creativity, it hampers free thought, and does not allow open discussion and open consideration. But that's not to say that we don't actually disclose the information that has been decided or what comes out of those meetings. Full disclosure, it is given, right? My office is going to give full disclosures on all of the decisions that are made, right? But if an idea is simply being considered, then I do not want to put people into the position where they cannot freely express themselves because they may fear that they will be put under a microscope. But that's not to say that, oh, we will not be transparent about the decisions. All decisions that are made are transparent. All decisions that are made are disclosed to the public, are disclosed to Senate. The decisions that were made on the personnel in terms of justices, those were disclosed to you. It was not made without your information. Also, in order to clarify Ravin's question about how information will be disclosed, so that's what we've been working on throughout this quarter, is to figure out a system that is efficient in getting all the information out. So we've actually been working to put together something similar to the accountability form, where information can be submitted to the marketing director, to the EVP, to be submitted to Senate, and that those information all get funneled through the right channels, so that one, the public, I understand the galley are here, there's about 20 seats, 30 seats in the galley, but it's almost impossible to really give access to the public when there's 20 seats out of 19,000 students. That's not really giving access or being transparent, right? So what is the best way to get that out? Through the web, right? That's the most effective way of reaching all those students. So I have been adamant with the marketing director in terms of getting the website up and running, right? It is still not up and running, and it has been 4 weeks or so, and I know that we have been busy with other projects, I understand that, but that's one thing. All information will be fully disclosed on the website. Through the form and via email, where every meeting that my office has, at least, will be disclosed to the public, right? The content of the meeting, any decisions made, will be disclosed to the public. But in terms of actual discussion, there is time for just brainstorming. And when you're planning, you cannot, one is when you're planning, sometimes you can't reveal the plan until you have something, right? If you're planning a surprise, you can't reveal it and have full transparency and then have the big bangs. It doesn't work that way. But anything that affects the public is disclosed to the public. It will be fully transparent about. It's just the processes to come to those decisions are not always open to the public, and that's the reality of it. That is simply the reality. Nowhere in administration, in your own leadership, are you completely 100% transparent, and that's what I'm saying. Stop giving the public a false sense of, oh yes, we will be always transparent. Because you know what? That's not true. We are not always transparent. Okay? We are not always transparent, but we will disclose full information that pertains to the public. We will disclose the full information that pertains to the public, but it is not true that we're always transparent, and it is not true that we're always private. So please quote the full statement, don't just take part of it. Lastly, in terms of constitutionality, I understand that subcommittee meetings and subordinate committees require that, but again, from my understanding, the ECAB meetings are not subcommittees of ASUCR. Again, that can be challenged and be reviewed by the judicial board. But here's how it works. Executive cabinet, executive member, executive branch executes based on their interpretation. And it does not mean you agree with my interpretation of the bylaws. But if you don't, then you bring it to the justices, and they review it, and then if they rule that it is actually not constitutional, then they can strike that down, and then we will do as they rule, right? So the proper procedure would be, if you disagree with my interpretation as an executive member, to challenge those interpretations, and then have the justices decide whether it is constitutional or not. Lastly, the reason we haven't had ECAB meetings yet is because there hasn't been enough content to actually have a meeting in terms of vetoing legislation. As we are, as legislations come through, we do plan on having ECAB meetings and meet the minimum of 5 ECAB meetings per quarter. Additionally, we have always planned on having the directors present, just like you were invited to the ECAB meetings over the summer, which it was not even required to invite you. So I was under, it was me that invited you out to those ECAB meetings, and then we will again invite you out to the ECAB meetings this quarter. So with those, I think hopefully I responded to most of the concerns. If I missed something, please reiterate your questions so I can address them.
No, actually, we still have speakers. I was just telling that you're
Here's
not.
point.
Oh, wait, was point of clarification?
You pointed to me, so
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just making a motion that I got.
You captured it. Okay.
He's making a motion.
I'd like to motion to close the speakers list, just because I feel like we're gonna have a cyclic conversation at the end of this. So I don't want to disenfranchise anybody. So I want everyone that's already put their hand in to be able to speak. But I do feel that we need to close this topic.
Okay.
Point of inquiry.
Yes.
I think that if we're going to maintain an environment of respect, the side conversations also need to stop. It's just really distracting.
Actually, I 100% agree. So we'll keep side conversations to a minimum. I don't want to have to play babysitter, but I do have people being over there. So at this time, we have met a motion to close the speakers list, which means that no new speakers will be added after this. And we will go through, and then the topic will be exhausted. We'll move on to our next agenda item after all the speakers have gone through. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Ali Isles. All those in favor?
Wait, can we recall the vote? Can we retake the vote? We missed the initial question.
Oh, it was to close the speakers list. Yeah, the vote is to close the speakers list. So it was motioned by Fernando Echeverria and seconded by Senator Ali Isles. All those in favor of closing the speakers list? All those opposed? And abstain. By a vote of 12-1-0, this motion passes. The speakers list is now closed. And we will now proceed with the next person on our speakers, Senator Herman Sanger.
Yeah, just to start off, I just wanted to clarify that my intention was never to attack anybody. My intention was solely to uphold the integrity of our Constitution. I'm not saying that I disagree with the people who were appointed justices, nor am I saying I disagree with their qualifications. All I'm saying is I don't necessarily agree with the procedure that we took to appoint them. So I just want to clarify that it was never my intention, and I apologize if I did offend anybody. Secondly, to go off of what Abe was saying, he said there's a little catch-22 with the whole, maybe I suggest senators not submit a judicial review form. However, my understanding of the Constitution is that if there are if there aren't justices, that justices from last year still technically have their term, and I am aware that some of those justices from last year are still here. That's my understanding. We can go over that back and forth. So I just want to clarify that. I don't believe there's a catch-22, but that's my understanding of the Constitution. But moving forward, I want to say that bringing up what's done in the past, it's not a matter of what's done in the past. Regardless of what happened last year or procedures or actions that were taken last year, let's move forward and let's create a better AS or improve, uphold the things that were done well and try improving and making it the best possible AS for the students. And I want to say that the biggest thing to me personally is not compromising the integrity of our Constitution. I do not care if last year the ECAB meetings or the ... meetings were not, publicized. I
find in the Constitution that it very explicitly states that these meetings are open to the public. If you want a closed meeting, that's fine. However, you should either do it during, move to go to a closed meeting, or as Abe said, you can technically do it beforehand. But regardless, in our Constitution, the one that's only 22 pages, not the 164 bylaws, which all of us should be well versed in, the Constitution states that there needs to be a notice of the meeting. These meetings need to have a 48-hour public notice. It needs to be not only posted on the front door of AS, it needs to be written notice to all senators, it needs to be posted on the ASUCR website, and it needs to be given notice to all campus media. So these are things in our Constitution. Regardless of what happened last year, the previous years, I do not care. This is the Constitution, and we should not compromise its integrity. Thank you. Oh, sorry, one last thing. My understanding, once again, of the Constitution, it says these, meetings that need to be open are all official meetings of ASUCR, including subcommittees and subordinate committees. My understanding is that ECAB is a subordinate committee to associated students, regardless of how you look at it. ECAB is a subordinate committee in the overall AS. That's my understanding. And with that being said, they should be open meetings. Thank you.
We'll now hear from External Affairs Vice President Ibrahim Bama.
Yeah, so I wanted to say that I think it's really problematic to look at transparency in terms of like decisions, because if you look at, for example, the UC Regents meetings, they go into closed session so much all the time, and they don't have any student input. They tell us what their decisions are, but that doesn't mean that necessarily that they were transparent. I think that making sure that everybody can express themselves freely and whatnot is really not something that we should be considering when we make closed sessions. I'm sorry, but if you don't have the capacity or the willpower to say what you want to say in a public meeting, then maybe you shouldn't be on this horseshoe, or maybe you shouldn't be in an executive cabinet position. That's just me, right? If you don't have the capacity to say what you're going to say, or you don't have the willpower to say what you're going to say, then you shouldn't be here. I'm sorry, and I invite you to leave. Because at the end of the day, that's why a lot of times we appear to the public to not be able to do much, and we appear so weak because we're not able to take grounded decisions publicly, much like other bodies take actual decisions publicly. And at the end of the day, closed sessions should only be had when it pertains to an individual that is not on this, when it depends to the character of an individual, which is why, for example, earlier, I asked Herman what his questions were going to be, because if they were going to be anything about the individuals, then we had to go into closed session. But if it's about yourself and your opinions, then that's what you're here for. Like, that's what people elected you for, is to have opinions and to make decisions, to express yourself. So I don't think that should be in any way any factor in deciding when we have closed sessions. It should stick by what the regular procedure in our Constitution says, which is that closed session should only occur when it's personnel matters that are being discussed. Which is why, like, if you look at the agenda, I asked for a closed session because there's a personnel matter that I have to discuss. But we need to be very careful in the way that we do things, because at the end of the day, what's going to end up is the highlighter article is going to go out, and we're going to look like a complete shit show because we don't know what we're doing, and because we don't know how to run our meetings transparently. And that's just a fact of the matter, right? And I think we've been doing a good job in terms of Senate of making sure that we're transparent. Michael has done a really good job in setting up these meetings to make sure that we're transparent, but we need to be holding every committee of ASUCR to the same standard. I don't agree that ECAB is necessarily a subordinate committee, but regardless, we're a committee of AS, and any committee of AS should be held to the same standard of being open and whatnot. Just to clarify the point that I made earlier in terms of like moving forward from this, currently we have 5 justices. Those are the justices that were just ratified and the 3 justices that we already have. The terms of any previous justice are already over, and because otherwise we would have like 8 justices, and that's not true. We have 5 justices now. If you look at what the quorum is, it has to be more than 3. But in any decision in regards to this matter, the 2 individuals would have to recuse themselves, so that would get us back down to 3, which is not quorum. So that's why I just wanted to make sure that's very clear to everybody in terms of understanding why I'm saying that unfortunately I don't think that there's anything that we can do. And that's aside from the fact that I don't think there's anything we should do because that would be unfair to those individuals. But I do agree with Senator Akeem Brown in his regard that I think there's really a fundamental problem here and that we haven't updated our bylaws in regards to transparency in meetings in a while. That needs to be looked at. We haven't really taken a very intentional approach of reviewing that. And I think along with that, we haven't really taken an intentional approach of reviewing the Constitution and submitting a really pristine, finalized one. We are operating off one that was just passed. And I don't know if you were here last year, but I am even questionable about the Constitution we have right now. That's a different story for another time. But I think we need to set up something where I don't know if any of the senators want to take the lead on this. I know that Herman and Akeem already said that they started working on it, but having even if it's going to be informal meetings of groups of individuals in AS to review the Constitution and review our bylaws in depth and make amendments and then propose actual ones that we can pass through here and that we can also have ratified by the student body. And things like this, of issues of when we need to be going in closed session, when we don't need to be going in closed session, whether it's possible to hold ECAB meetings without notifying other ECAB members, even if there's quorum. Everything like this, it's unfortunate that we have to be so, I don't know the word for it right now, but that we have to be so picky about these things. But I would suggest that if anybody's reviewing any bylaws and submitting anything, that you be extremely picky with the way that your things are set up, which is why if you look at the bylaw that I just passed, I was extremely picky because I want to make sure that there's no room for things like this. Because there's no reason why we should have to spend, I think at this point, almost an hour of conversation during a public meeting to discuss an issue like this. We have to be thorough in our documents. That's what the documents are there for, so that we have a structure so we don't have these things. That's it. I'll stop.
Okay, thank you. We're now moving on. Marketing Director Ravina Thon, you have the floor.
Thank you. One thing I want to echo to start off with is that when you say that you did disclose the decisions, you disclosed those decisions promptly before asking for an appointment for the justices. So that in no way, in my mind, qualifies as disclosing your decision. Secondly, I know you spoke about how we were working to streamline media. I don't know if there was anything in specific that was mentioned, but that is the overall goal of my office. I understand, and it's totally within your purview to mention the ASUCR website, so I'd like to provide a little context into that. I started working on the website. Now what happened was, last year when I started this position, it was a brand new position, I had a webmaster position in my committee. What happened was that webmaster did not stay past fall quarter because he was not able to, and he was getting paid from other websites. So that's that. Following that, we tried to appoint a webmaster, but after meeting with pro staff, we determined, because I don't really have much experience in web, I have no experience in web, we decided that, I would help collaborate, and it is still my responsibility. However, there would be other staff members that would also help out, and it would be a collective kind of effort. I am trying to update the website. However, 3 weeks ago, we got the first of 2 malicious attacks on our website, which caused the website to go down. Last week, again, there was another malicious attack from one of the plugins that are, vulnerable, so the website went down again. This time, because once again, I'm not really qualified as a webmaster or anything, Lori was very kind, and she got me in contact with some people from computing on campus and campus IT. So they've been very helpful, and they've helped us set up a temporary website, and per Amy's, she recommended that I speak to campus IT so the website could be up quicker, because I agree that is one thing I'm currently working on. I had quite a few other projects to deal with at the beginning of the year, but that in no way qualifies the website still being down. So I apologize for that. I'm working with campus IT, however, for our website, they don't support WordPress, which is what our website runs on. She did give me a few pointers, so I'm trying to talk to someone else and pick up on the pointers that campus IT taught us,
However, there is still a temporary website. We've sent a campus email for everyone for our most requested feature on the website is the discounted tickets link. So we sent the campus a discounted tickets link for amusement parks via email. We've notified them that the website's down. I've given my email address and I've been getting requests for information that was on the website, which I'm promptly replying to. But of course, the immediate goal is to get the website up. However, in the Constitution, for public meetings, it does state there are 4 options you can take to notify the public. 1 is notify the Senate in writing. 2 is posting it on the ASUCR door, very simple to do. 3, notice on campus media, which is active and which is under my purview, and I have, you've never met about any of this. Or 4, post it on the ASUCR website, which I apologize, you would be unable to do so right now. So that's that about the website. You mentioned something about the surprise. I don't know. It's not. These are appointments. They're not surprises. And one thing that I do feel disenfranchised by is you saying that you were not required to invite directors to ECAB. That is a far cry from what I heard in June. I mean, in my head, I don't know if this was ever explicitly stated or not, but the vibe I got was that no, you need to attend ECAB meetings, And I understand I had a 12-month appointment, me particularly, so I was doing work. However, I was also working back home in Fullerton and was unable to leave during the mornings a lot of times. But because I was under the purview that I did have to attend ECAB meetings, I started taking Tuesdays as a day off so I could attend these meetings. So for you to say that you invited me and I wasn't required to, I definitely feel 1, I was required to, but 2, I was happy to be there and contribute my opinions. So, I mean, I'm glad that you're going to continue to invite us, but I don't know. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, we'll now continue with the speakers list.
Point of information.
Yes.
Did we create a new speakers list, or is this the original list?
It's the original list.
Because if this is the original list, everybody that has spoken twice shouldn't be speaking.
No, here's the thing. You are allowed to re-add yourself to the speakers list once you've already spoken. You cannot be on the speakers list twice. Once you've spoken, you've exhausted yourself on the list and can be re-added.
Am I on the list?
Yes, you're on the list. No disenfranchises here. Okay. Up next. Yes.
Can you just tell us who's left on the list? Because there may be some people who want to yield their time or cash and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we have Elections Director Stephanie Rose up next, and then we have VP Campus Internal Affairs Fernando Chivarria, President Pro Tempore Devin Plazo, Akeem Brown, Summer Schaefer, Delaney Koenig, Jackie Jacoby, and President Nafi Karim himself.
Can I withdraw?
Yes.
I withdraw as well.
Jesus, withdraw, yeah.
I'll withdraw. Okay. Okay, so Stephanie, did you still want to? Were you still speaking?
We have closed session roll call things.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure if this has happened yet this term, but I know that this is something that we used to do last year in that sense that we would wait till the last minute so that we could make sure we would be the last person to speak. So I would really like to ask the chair to not entertain any requests for specific orders of speakers. And I'm saying this with the sense that I did that last year, so I, by no means am I holding anybody accountable for that. But what I would like to say is we should hopefully not do that this year.
You're right. No, don't worry. I have taken all the orders I've received. Okay, so we can proceed next. And we have Elections Director Stephanie Rose.
Thank you. I wrote something down. You said we don't tell the public. The issue that I see with that is you never said why we can't. So I'm pretty sure that none of us were elected or appointed into our positions because we decided that we were going to say, well, something can't happen, or we don't do that because that's why we were elected, so we can tell the public. You were saying we're supposed to tell the public about meetings, but you never said why you can't. As in, you didn't tell ECAB, first of all, the ECAB members, you didn't tell directors, Senate wasn't informed, so you're making a statement that you couldn't tell the public. You did make that statement, I wrote it down. Additionally, you said you committee leaders understand that sometimes you must have private meetings. While I do understand what closed sessions are, you selectively chose members of your meeting to attend, as other members of ECAB were not informed about the meeting.
And the third one, just piggybacking on Ravine, directors were invited to summer meetings because of your discretion. I do appreciate that. I did not know that it is up to your discretion. However, I can say for Pro Tempore, for outreach, for marketing, we were told you must be there. It's required. And like Ravine said, we were happy to be there. I was really glad I was informed. It helped me feel integrated into the process and ASUCR as a whole. However, it's just another thing. You told us we were invited, just as I feel certain members were invited to this meeting instead of all of ECAP as well.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now proceed with the speakers list. Next, we have President Pro Tempore David Quantum. Oh, you withdrew? Okay. Senator Summer Schaefer.
Yeah, President Natakarim made a statement about transparency that may or could be interpreted as including the whole Senate, but I just wanted to speak on my own behalf in saying that in regards to transparency, even though it may seem difficult to get to 100% transparency, I will work very, very hard and do as much as I can to be as transparent as I can. And if anyone in the student body feels as though I'm not being transparent, to please come tell me and tell me how I can work on that so that I can be more transparent as a representative to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Last one was Delaney, you withdrew yourself, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Then last we have Abby.
Okay, so in terms of what happened last year, and if we're just making decisions based on that, definitely not. We're not making decisions based on what happened last year. If you know me, you know that this is just the way that is not a valid argument to me, and that's not what I'm saying. What I said was, if we're going to say that something's transparent, then we need to actually make it transparent, right? So I could have told you that yes, it was open to public, and it is open to public without it, but if I don't actually take the action to make it really open to public and really notify the public, then that's problematic. I have no problem with transparency itself, but what I'm saying is transparency is not always practical in every situation. It's not always possible in every situation. That does not mean that full disclosure is not given about the subject matter. It means that there may be some time before that information is that can be properly disclosed to the public. So, in regards to brainstorming, the comments that were made in terms of, oh, well, you should be able to brainstorm in front of the public, that is a matter of opinion. It does not, like, when you are brainstorming an idea, you don't necessarily have to disclose it, but as throughout the decision-making process, yes, you will obviously bring the public into the Senate into that decision-making process. If you notice my initiative in terms of sending out campus-wide emails addressing the public, that's one way we're taking the initiative to actually inform the public that hasn't ever been done before. Never has it happened where the president is taking the initiative to actually address the public, to actually give them information that they do not get. So yes, we can have open public meetings, and how many public members are here, right? And how many are actually going to go through and shift through all the minutes to know what is happening? How realistic is that? It's not. Let's not kid ourselves. It's not realistic. It's not really open to public. So my point is there's a certain way that information can be relayed to the public that is more effective, that will give them a better understanding of what is happening. In terms of content, it's not that we're just making the decision and not revealing why we came to a certain decision. No, we will also reveal what the decision was and why and how we reached that decision. And not only that, we will actually get the input from all stakeholders, or as many stakeholders that is practical, to make an initiative successful. In terms of ECAB members being a subordinate committee, again, it is my interpretation, and I disagree with Senator Herman is saying that I do not believe that ECAB is a subordinate committee. ECAB is the executive committee of ASUCR. And in terms of meetings, that there are multiple ways. There's two issues at hand. One, the process of the appointment is separate from what I believe in terms of how information should be relayed to the public. In terms of the appointment, it was not followed in a very formal manner, because it was my understanding that the duty was delegated and further clarified by the president's bylaw that they would nominate. That's why I simply consulted and made sure that I at least had 3 members who are okay with the nominations, right? So that may not be the best way, and I apologize for going about it that way, but that was because I was under the understanding that the president simply makes the nominations as further clarified in my bylaws. But just in case, I consulted with 2 other members of ECAB. In the future, again, with the last judicial appointment, we will consult all members and have them included. And in terms of having directors involved in ECAB meetings, just like we did, and yes, it is true that it is not required of me to have you at the ECAB meetings, and I was told during summer that, yeah, directors don't have to be there, but not all members, right? Not all directors, but most directors do not have to be at ECAB meetings. Not that if you're paid, you don't have to do your work. So, but it was up to my discretion, and I made the decision that it would be beneficial to have directors at ECAB meetings, and just like I think it will be beneficial to have directors at ECAB meetings now. We will have ECAB meetings when there's a need for a veto, or there's matters to be discussed, and again, we'll have an ECAB meeting in terms of discussing the last remaining judicial appointment. Lastly, I will clarify that when we have meetings, I have your points noted. We will announce when ECAB meetings are being held, and it's not going to be just said, oh, ECAB meetings are at this time, it's open to the public. If we're going to say that, then I'm going to commit to actually making it open to the public and making it accessible to the public, not just saying it, but actually having it sent out via email, and having all members know when, all members of the public and UCR community know when ECAB meetings are, and they will be invited equally, as opposed to just saying, oh, ECAB meetings are public.
Request for information?
Yes.
You said that we're going to meet when we need to have like votes on vetoes and stuff like that, but who makes that decision of when we need to have those votes? I think if anything, please clarify me if I'm wrong, because I'm hoping that I am. But what I got from what you said was that we'll have a vote when we need to, we'll have meetings when we need to have these votes, but it's not explicit as to who decides when we need to have these votes. If anything, we should have these meetings every week after these meetings pass, and that way, if any ECAB member deems that there needs to be a vote, any ECAB member can motion for a vote to veto any legislation.
Yeah.
So please clarify.
Yeah. So to clarify your point, the system that we're setting up will actually allow any member of ECAP to request a meeting, right? So any member who feels that there needs to be discussion in regards to a veto can call a meeting. So that's on the table.
Okay. We have request for information.
So can directors call an ECAP meeting?
That's not something that I've actually considered, so we can talk further as to the rationale.
Sure. Okay.
Request for information.
Okay, but I'm going to make this the last point, so we can move on with agenda items.
Okay. So, are having votes on vetoes the end-all be-all of ECAP meetings?
No.
Because then I would say that we should be able to call meetings for other purposes, like, for example, just being there for the public to come talk to us aside from Senate meetings in an ECAP meeting format, or for us to discuss what's going on in this office. Obviously, a lot of things are going on in this office that we as executive cabinet should be talking about, and we're not talking about them. So, is the primary purpose of our meetings only going to be to hold these veto meetings? Or if not, then how do we call other meetings or whatnot?
Yeah, so the system that we're setting up essentially allows you to call a meeting, to request a meeting for whatever purpose that you have to address an issue, right? So the primary purpose for an ECAP meeting, the main the power that the executive cabinet is granted is a veto. So therefore, that would be the primary purpose of an ECAP meeting. But the system that will be implemented will allow for greater communication throughout the office in terms of ECAP members and directors included. And anytime there needs to be further in-person communication, will also facilitate that. And if all members are required to be at those meetings, those meetings will be had. If it pertains to, let's say, collaboration between elections and marketing, then we'll facilitate, the office of the president will facilitate those meetings, right? And then if other members will be notified that this meeting is being is going to happen. If you want to come give your input, that's fine, but this is primarily for this purpose. So it's more specialized for the purposes that we're trying to accomplish, and the agenda items for a particular meeting.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to end and move on to with our next item of the agenda. Thank you. That wraps up our currently untitled agenda item. And I do want to make a point at all to thank you for having your opinions heard. We were all just witness to an example of checks and balances, and that is beautiful. So for all members of Senate who still have the energy, we will now be moving on to Section J, Roundtable and Announcements. Yes, I can hear the enthusiasm. So we begin from my right and continue to my left. Roundtable announcements are matters that do not pertain to your ASUCR senatorial duties. Okay, Senator Jason Ramirez.
No announcements.
Senator Summer Schaefer.
I just wanted to thank everyone who came out today and helped out with one event or the other, or participated in any of them. And I also wanted to thank CSPN Dia de los Muertos in allowing my event to still happen, even though it was in the same space as theirs and sharing that space with me. So I just wanted to thank you all.
Thank you. Senator Delaney Coney, do you have an announcement that you'd like to make? Senator Carlton Newman?
Pass.
Senator Christian Argon? Pass. Senator Keem Brown?
One last thing I would like to say. Part of what we do is public policy. And public policy is to improve the public. If you want to improve the public, you must have public input. If public input is not there, that's just a private agenda. So let's just keep that in mind, that we are here to serve the public and everything we do is for the public. Thank you.
Okay, Restrictor Jessica Kiedis.
Hi, I thought you would have mentioned it, but I know that there is an event for our kids. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mention that for you. If you can help me out, because I just pulled it up right now. I did. Okay, so I'm just inviting everyone for the galley and everyone on the horseshoe to the second annual trunk or treat. It is hosted by the Family Housing. I know that it's going to be in the Canyon Crest Community Park, which is the park inside of Family Housing. I participated in the event last year. It was amazing, so much fun. The thriller dance, the kids, it was amazing. So I'm inviting everyone out. I'm going to be there. It's tomorrow and picture. I'm sorry. It's Friday, October 31st from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It's a great event, and I just recommend everyone go out. Secondly, it was told to me through different departments that ASUCR needs to better their relationship with each department. Unfortunately, there has already, just at the beginning of the year, already been many issues with getting in contact with ASUCR, or at least starting a conversation with these departments. From my understanding, there were students who were directed towards specific departments, and there was no communication with them. So we're trying very hard as ASUCR to build bridges, and we don't want to, destroy them before they're built. But last, I'm hoping it's going to be the last, I just wanted to, congratulate everyone on the amazing events that went on, the Food Truck Festival, the demonstration, and the Dia de los Muertos. I wanted to thank everyone who came out. It was amazing. I was so happy with the cultura that was going on, all the environment. I myself was, very exhausted with all of the information. As a ASUCR outreach director, I understand that there's a relationship between CSP, Raza Assembly, and ASUCR, but in the future, I hope that everyone understands that I am a student of that space. I do not feel comfortable answering any questions that I am not the right person to ask. I do feel comfortable if you, go ahead and ask me these questions. I will direct you to the people who I feel is best suited to answer these questions. But when those people are attempting to give you those answers and there's no response, then we'll hope to start having a better response or open communication. Also, I wanted to thank Ravine and Summer for having communication between myself and each other. I know it was very hard, but we did make it work. All the events were a success. Fernando as well. I know I went to you a couple times, but I know it's midterms week. We are students first. Once again, I just wanted to congratulate everyone, and I look forward to having events together and collaboratively. Thank you.
Okay. Elections Director, Cynthia.
Pass.
President Pro Tempore Devin Plaza.
Pass.
Vice President of Finance Irish Shane.
Pass.
President Nafi Correa.
Great discussions. I invite you all to stay back if you want to brainstorm and think about how we can go forward with the things that we discussed.
Happy Halloween. Alright, Vice President of External Affairs, Abraham Galvin.
Yeah, so two things. First off, I'm hereby requesting that we have regular ECAP meetings, once a week, hopefully. So we can request meetings for whatever reason, and the reason is just that I want to have them because I think we need them. So I hereby am making this request formally to Senate and to the President, to everybody that's here in the galley. I want to say thank you to everybody who came out to the galley, even though there's only 19 or whatever number of you. I think there's a reason why you're here, and we still really value having you here. And it's just as valuable as having input from the larger student body. Maybe they couldn't all make it out, but I do appreciate those of you that went that extra mile to actually come out and stay through our long discussions of internal matters. And aside from that, in terms of announcements, right now the Advocates to the Regents applications are open. Traditionally, we haven't had many UCR students really apply to those positions, so I really, really encourage you to apply. I especially encourage Senate to apply. I think in your capacities as elected officials, you really have a great understanding for what students need on this campus, but I also encourage all members of the galley and the public to apply. I think it's a great opportunity. Unfortunately, the Regents love to have closed sessions, and they love to have times when it's not fully transparent what they're doing, but as a STAR, which is a student advocate to the region, you really get to participate more in those discussions and be aware of what's being said and what's being discussed. So I really strongly encourage you to apply, and I'll do everything in my capacity if you reach out to me to help you make sure that you are submitting an application that is well written and whatnot, because I really do believe that we need to have more ASUCR students represented in those spaces, especially as STARs, preparing students to become student regents and whatnot. So please reach out to me and I can help you as best as I can. Oh, and the application is on my Facebook page, so you should go like it so you can see my...
Please go like it. Vice President of Campus Internal Affairs, Fernando Echeverria.
I would like to thank the galley for staying with us so long. Secondly, I'd like to quickly thank you so much for passing the transfer bylaws, because you've just given a voice to so many students who have traditionally not had a voice. And I'm sure that once I tell them, probably on Friday, that they'll be just thrilled to actually have a voice through ASUCR. So you've done a great good. I thank you so much. And my next thank you is to thank you for volunteering, every single one of you. I think over the past 4 weeks, Senate as a whole, you've done a great job of just doing well in your projects, of helping one another and helping us as ECAP. So a huge amount of kudos to all of you, because you really make this office work, and I think we would have been able to do as much work as we have without all of you. So thank you so much. And lastly, the musical Spamalot is actually going to start November 12th to the 24th. You can start getting your tickets at the University Theater box office starting like tomorrow. And thank you so much. You guys make me proud to be a Highlander.
Thank you very much. Okay. Marketing Director Rabin Rathod.
Thank you. Just a couple things. Once again, echoing what everyone said, thank you all so much for volunteering. I really appreciated it. The comments by and far were, well, the volunteers are great. This event is running very smoothly, so thank you all so much. And honestly, Dia de los Muertos was awesome. Even if I was at the ASUCR 10, I'd kind of be looking over. The Carry the Weight Solidarity March was fantastic. We have coverage of that, so those pictures will be on our Facebook page. Also, if you're in a student org, Student Life is hosting a fundraising workshop, and that's going to be tomorrow from 5 to 6 in Student Life, so please attend if you're part of the student org. They're going to have some great tips. And also, once again, if you're a club and you'd like to submit an ad for the Highlander for free, please email me. The deadline's tomorrow. The dimensions are 4 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall, and they'll be run in the next issue of the Highlander. So that'll be, yeah. And happy Halloween.
Thank you. Senator Herman Sankum.
Yeah, so I want to start off by saying thank you to all of those individuals that came with or went with Sikh Student Association to our Bandi Chor Divas celebration at the Sikh Gurdwara or Sikh temple. With that, Sikh Student Association is also having a laser tag event next week. So it's going to be a very fun, social. We are subsidizing the price a little bit, and I would love to see familiar faces from this horseshoe rather than arguing. Maybe we can shoot each other. With that being said, actually, Raveen and I and a couple other individuals here on campus have started a new organization called South Asian Federation. It is a politically oriented club, and you will be seeing us, especially at LRC. And I understand that we may argue or debate on this horseshoe a lot, and at times, we are not seeing each other eye in eye. But I just want it to be known that we are all here to further this UC, and we are here to represent the students, and we are working together in a collective goal. So, I did comment on things that I didn't necessarily like that were done last year by the AS. However, there's one specific thing I love that was done last year by the AS, and that is whenever there was a birthday of some member on this horseshoe, they would sing for that person. So I believe that it was Devin's birthday last week. So I would love for all of us to sing for her.
Oh, actually, to add on to that, our Senate Secretary's birthday.
Okay, yeah. So let's sing.
For Devin and our Devin.
Yeah. So on the count of 3, let's sing. But the gallery has to participate. Okay. So once again, I want to end this meeting on a light note and one of celebration. So 1. Devin and Ardeli. So 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you.
birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jennifer. Happy birthday to you. As for your shooting idea, I think we do one Mr. Stress. Senator Riegler. Senator Fabian.
So congratulations on everybody's program. A little reminder for everybody, when we do have programs and large events, volunteers are important. So let's try to refrain from giving a lot of orders and working with them. They shouldn't be working for us, but with us. Thank you.
Awesome. Senator Priscilla Correa.
Hi, I'll pass.
Senator Jackie Jacoby.
My announcement is just this weekend. Please, everyone, be safe, make good choices, have a driver. I'm serious. Like, there's Lyft, there's Uber, there's lots of other. Just have a DD, drink lots of water, and also be aware of your costumes. Please be sensitive in terms of the people. There are issues in the past with costumes just being racist, being sexist, whatever. Please be aware of that this year and have fun.
Oh, thank you.
I pass.
Okay, thank you, Senator Alianos. Now, unfortunately, our next section is a closed session. So it's at this time that I want to thank the gallery for having come out and attended our Senate meeting. You've exhibited extraordinary patience, and we sincerely appreciate it.